Ethan worried silently. If this plan really involved Natasha, was she safe right now? He decided he had to find more clues immediately, uncover the truth of this plan, and find a way to protect her from harm. At the same time, Ethan realized this new crisis could be even more severe than the previous attack in Harbin, requiring his full attention. Elton, do you know where this alliance's base is? Ethan asked urgently. Elton frowned, thinking for a moment before speaking slowly. Mr. Yi, I can't give you a definitive answer to that. This alliance has always maintained a high level of secrecy. The exact location of their base is likely known only to core members. However, based on my own speculation and some clues, I believe it might be on Russia's Sakhalin Island or Korea's Jeju Island. Both locations are geographically strategic and quite close to China, making them ideal for a secret organization's base. But this is just a guess. The reality may be different. Hearing Elton's answer, Ethan felt a pang of disappointment but nodded in understanding. Ethan knew finding the alliance's base would not be an easy task and would require more time and effort. After another moment of thought, Ethan said to Elton, "All right, thank you for the information. If you get any new intelligence, please notify me immediately. Also, whatever your intentions are, I hope you will be honest with me. If you dare to deceive me, you will face the consequences. Our cooperation is built on trust. If that trust is lost, there's no reason to continue." With that, Ethan stood up and vanished from the room. Elton stared at the empty chair, his heart in turmoil. Elton had indeed intended to use Ethan to counter General Warren, but faced with Ethan's warning, Elton couldn't help but feel a knot of tension. Elton realized he had to handle his relationship with Ethan very carefully. Elton couldn't afford to offend this powerful figure. Otherwise, not only would Elton's personal interests suffer, but the entire Rothschild family could face a significant threat. Thinking this, Elton sighed to himself. Ethan returned to his hotel room through the system space. Seeing Mina still asleep, Ethan quietly left and went to find Brock Bailey. "Ethan, what brings you here so early?" Brock asked, puzzled. Ethan nodded, walked over to the sofa, and sat down, his expression grave. "Brock, I just received intelligence that the U.S. has formed an alliance with Japan, Korea, and the Rakshasa organization, and they may be planning something against China. I suspect Natasha is the key to their plan. I need you to do me a favor. Go to Sakhalin Island and investigate the situation. If you find any trace of them or anything unusual, notify me immediately. This is crucial for us." Brock nodded seriously. "All right, I understand. Don't worry. I'll head to Sakhalin Island to start the investigation as soon as possible. I'll report back to you the moment I find anything." With that, Brock Bailey stood up, ready to leave immediately. Ethan looked at Brock Bailey and said, "Thank you, Brock. This mission is dangerous, but you're the only one who can handle it. Be extremely careful and protect yourself. I'll be waiting for your good news." Brock replied firmly, "Don't worry. I won't betray your trust. I will complete the mission." Brock Bailey then quickly left the room. After Brock Bailey left, Ethan informed Director Zhong of what Ethan had learned and then returned to his own room. Meanwhile, in a hidden underground base, two beautiful young women were sitting and chatting in a sealed room. If Ethan were there, he would have been stunned. The two women, conversing like old friends, were none other than Natasha and Ella. "Natasha, you've been held here for almost a month, but I don't see a trace of fear in your eyes. Can you tell me why?" Ella asked, taking a sip of her coffee. "Ella, my dear, have you forgotten my ability? I can see myself leaving this place safely, so why should I be afraid? But you, on the other hand, have you still not made your decision? Your time is running out," Natasha said, looking at Ella with a mysterious smile, as if she could see her past and future. Ella frowned slightly, seeming a bit confused by Natasha's words. Ella gently stirred her coffee, lost in thought for a moment before asking, "Natasha, is your ability really that powerful? Can you truly see what will happen in the future?" Natasha smiled and nodded, her eyes shining with confidence. "Of course, my ability is no joke. I can see future events, though not everyone can see them clearly. But when it comes to my own future, I am quite certain." Ella sighed, a hint of resignation in her eyes. "Then why don't you escape? If you have such an ability, you should be able to get out of this situation easily." Natasha shook her head gently, her tone firm. "I can't leave, because if I leave, I won't meet him." Ella stared at Natasha, her heart filled with conflict and struggle. Ella didn't know whether to believe Natasha's words or what choice Ella should make. After a moment, Ella put down her coffee cup, stood up, and began to pace back and forth in the room. "Natasha, I still don't quite believe you. Your ability is too mysterious, too difficult to grasp. And even if you can see the future, how can you be sure things will happen exactly as you see them?" Ella stopped and stared at Natasha. Natasha maintained her calm smile. "Ella, you will understand sooner or later. Time does not lie. Let me give you a piece of advice. Make your decision soon, or you will regret it." Ella stood up and turned to leave. Ella felt that if Ella stayed any longer, Ella would be completely brainwashed. Ella had to get out of there. As Ella reached the door, Ella heard Natasha's voice from behind Ella. "Ella, my dear, Remember to bring me a bottle of vodka next time you come. Natasha looked at Ella with a smile, her eyes twinkling with anticipation. Natasha then added, and I really hate coffee. Don't bring it next time. With that, Natasha took a sip from her cup, a look of distaste on her face. Ella paused for a moment, then nodded in agreement. Although Ella was surprised by the request, Ella decided to grant Natasha's wish. So, Ella silently made a note of Natasha's request and decided to bring a bottle of vodka on Ella's next visit. As Ella left the room, Natasha's gaze followed Ella until the door closed. Then Natasha turned her attention back to the room. After Ethan returned to the room and saw that Nina Lee had woken up, Ethan walked over, sat on the edge of the bed, and looked at Nina Lee. Nina, our trip to Russia is coming to an end. I have some things I need to go back and take care of. Nina sat up, rubbed her eyes, and asked softly, What's so urgent? Can't we stay a few more days? Ethan shook his head. I work for a special government department. There's an emergency situation, and I have to get back right away to handle it. Nina nodded in understanding and said gently, All right then. I was starting to feel like going back anyway. You go take care of your business. I can get back to Shanghai on my own. Ethan dotingly stroked Nina's head. I have to go to Harbin. Do you want to come with me? We can go back together after I'm done. Hearing this, Nina's eyes lit up. Nina replied happily, Yes, of course. I've never been to Harbin. It would be great to see it. So, Nina quickly got up and dressed. Meanwhile, Ethan opened his phone and sent a message to Petrov, telling Petrov he had a lead on Natasha and needed to investigate it. Once they were ready, Ethan took Nina's hand and they entered the system space. Then, using the spatial coordinates Ethan had set, Ethan and Nina instantly appeared in the villa Ethan had recently bought in Harbin. The moment they arrived, Nina was captivated by the snowy scene outside the window and rushed over to admire it. Ethan sat on the sofa and began to think about his next move. Just then, Ethan's phone rang. It was Petrov. Ethan, is the lead you mentioned reliable? Petrov asked anxiously. I can't be sure yet, but it's worth checking out, Ethan replied. All right, let me know if you need any help, Petrov said. After hanging up, Ethan stood up and walked over to Nina. Ethan said gently, Nina, I have to go out for a bit. Be careful here by yourself. Dylan's house is the one on the left and Wayne's is on the right. If you get bored, you can go over and visit. Nina turned her head and smiled. Don't worry, go ahead. I'll go say hello in a little while. Ethan nodded, kissed Nina on the forehead, and then walked out of the villa. After leaving, Ethan immediately summoned his flying sword. Ethan leaped onto his flying sword gracefully and then piloted it towards Jeju Island. Half an hour later, Ethan appeared in the sky above Jeju Island. Since the island wasn't very large, Ethan's psychic energy easily blanketed the entire area. Ethan meticulously searched for any sign of Natasha or any suspicious targets, but after a long search, Ethan found nothing. Just as Ethan was about to leave and return to Harbin, Ethan spotted a familiar face. Kevin Kim, the same guy Ethan had once humiliated. Seeing Kevin Kim, Ethan teleported and appeared right behind Kevin Kim. Kevin sensed someone, turned around, and Kevin's face instantly went pale. Ethan, Kevin stammered, Kevin's voice trembling. Ethan stood before Kevin Kim, smiling. What a coincidence, running into you here. Kevin stumbled backward in fear. I'm already back in Korea. Are you still not going to let me go? Ethan touched his own face, wondering, am I really that scary? I've terrified him. Don't worry, I'm not here to cause you trouble. By the way, are you from Jeju Island? Has anything unusual been happening here lately? Ethan tried to make his tone as gentle as possible. Hearing that Ethan wasn't there for him, Kevin let out a long sigh of relief, but Kevin was still visibly afraid, Kevin's body trembling slightly. I'm not from Jeju. I'm from Seoul. After I left Shanghai University, I came here to relax. You know, a lot of beautiful women come here for photo ops, Kevin said, glancing around nervously. As for anything unusual, I haven't noticed anything, Kevin added, a hint of confusion in Kevin's voice. Ethan nodded. Ethan had thought there might be something special about this place, but it seemed not. Thanks for the information. If you notice anything else, feel free to let me know, Ethan said, a slight smile playing on Ethan's lips. Kevin nodded quickly, secretly relieved that Kevin hadn't displeased Ethan. Kevin hadn't forgotten the fear and helplessness Kevin felt when Ethan had controlled Kevin's body, a feeling like being a mind trapped in a paralyzed shell. Ethan turned and left, leaving Kevin Kim standing there, still shaken, watching Ethan's retreating back. After leaving, Ethan searched the area again carefully, hoping to find any trace Natasha might have left, but ultimately, Ethan came up empty. Helpless, Ethan had no choice but to leave and return to the villa in Harbin. When Ethan walked into the villa, Ethan found it empty. Nina wasn't there. Ethan frowned, a little worried, wondering where Nina had gone. Ethan took out Ethan's phone to call Nina, but then Ethan noticed an unread message on the screen. Ethan opened it and saw it was from Nina. It turned out Nina had gone with Maya and Sherry to the Harbin Ice and Snow World. Ethan breathed a sigh of relief. Knowing where Nina, Maya, and Sherry were, Ethan decided not to join them. Instead, Ethan planned to visit the Huafu Trading Company. Ethan didn't teleport this time. Ethan walked to the roadside, hailed a taxi, and gave the driver the address. Ethan then sat back, quietly watching the streets and pedestrians pass by, taking in the city's atmosphere. Since it was snowing, the roads were slippery, and the driver had to slow down for safety. The driver struck up a conversation with Ethan to pass the time. "Young man, you must be here for tourism, right? You're not dressed very warmly. It's not just cold here, it's bone-chilling cold. You'd better put on a few more layers," the driver said, his eyes full of concern. Ethan smiled back. "Thanks for the tip, sir. I didn't bring many warm clothes. But I've heard the military greatcoats here are great, cheap, and warm. I was planning on buying one." "Oh, you know about the military greatcoats," the driver said, surprised. "They're definitely our top choice for winter. A lot of people wear them, and they're affordable and good quality. If you need one, I can tell you some good places to buy them." "Kid, do you even know who I am?" the company's top salesman sneered, shoving Ethan aside. "No one here dares to walk in front of me." Moments later, that same salesman stared in disbelief as the CEO bowed to Ethan. "I'm just an employee," the CEO explained. "He's my boss." Moments later, that same salesman stared in disbelief as the CEO bowed to Ethan. But crushing a petty office bully was merely a distraction. Ethan's true battle wasn't for a company, it was for the world. Miles away, in the frozen depths beneath a Russian prison, a monster with diamond-hard skin roared in fury. His captive, a woman who could see the future, whispered a single name, Ethan. As alarms blared and genetically engineered beasts swarmed, Ethan appeared in a flash of light, his sword a cold whisper of death. His sword a cold whisper of death. He looked down at the defeated mutant leader, pinned by his golden core bodyguard. Pinned by his golden core bodyguard. "Villains always die because they talk too much," Ethan said calmly, just before the final, silent slash. They thought he was just some new kid. They were about to learn he was the one player in the game who could break all the rules. After Ethan returned to the room and saw that Nina Lee had woken up, he walked over, sat on the edge of the bed, and looked at her. "Nina, our trip to Russia is coming to an end. I have some things I need to go back and take care of." Nina sat up, rubbed her eyes, and asked softly, "What's so urgent? Can't we stay a few more days?" Ethan shook his head. "I work for a special government department. There's an emergency situation, and I have to get back right away to handle it." Nina nodded in understanding and said gently, "All right then. I was starting to feel like going back anyway. You go take care of your business. I can get back to Shanghai on my own." Ethan dotingly stroked her head. "I have to go to Harbin. Do you want to come with me? We can go back together after I'm done." Hearing this, Nina's eyes lit up. She replied happily, "Yes, of course. I've never been to Harbin. It would be great to see it." So, Nina quickly got up and dressed. Meanwhile, Ethan opened his phone and sent a message to Petrov, telling him he had a lead on Natasha and needed to investigate it. Once they were ready, Ethan took Nina's hand and they entered the system space. Then, using the spatial coordinates he had set, they instantly appeared in the villa he had recently bought in Harbin. The moment they arrived, Nina was captivated by the snowy scene outside the window and rushed over to admire it. Ethan sat on the sofa and began to think about his next move. Just then, his phone rang. It was Petrov. "Ethan, is the lead you mentioned reliable?" Petrov asked anxiously. "I can't be sure yet, but it's worth checking out," Ethan replied. "All right, let me know if you need any help," Petrov said. After hanging up, Ethan stood up and walked over to Nina. He said gently, "Nina, I have to go out for a bit. Be careful here by yourself. Dylan's house is the one on the left, and Wayne's is on the right. If you get bored, you can go over and visit." Nina turned her head and smiled. "Don't worry, go ahead. I'll go say hello in a little while." Ethan nodded, kissed her on the forehead, and then walked out of the villa. Ethan left the villa and immediately summoned his flying sword. He leaped onto it gracefully and then piloted it towards Jeju Island. Half an hour later, Ethan appeared in the sky above Jeju Island. Since the island wasn't very large, his psychic energy easily blanketed the entire area. Half an hour later, Ethan appeared in the sky above Jeju Island. Since the island wasn't very large, his psychic energy easily blanketed the entire area. Ethan meticulously searched for any sign of Natasha or any suspicious targets, but after a long search, he found nothing. Just as he was about to leave and return to Harbin, he spotted a familiar face. Kevin Kim, the same guy he had once severely humiliated. Seeing him, Ethan teleported and appeared right behind him. Kevin sensed someone, turned around, and his face instantly went pale. "Ethan," he stammered, his voice trembling. Ethan stood before him, smiling. "What a coincidence, running into you here." Kevin stumbled backward in fear. I'm already back in Korea. Are you still not going to let me go?" Ethan touched his own face, wondering, am I really that scary? I've terrified him. You don't worry, I'm not here to cause you trouble. By the way, are you from Jeju Island? Has anything unusual been happening here lately?" Ethan tried to make his tone as gentle as possible. Hearing that Ethan wasn't there for him, Kevin let out a long sigh of relief. but he was still visibly afraid, his body trembling slightly. I'm not from Jeju. I'm from Seoul. After I left Shanghai University, I came here to relax. You know, a lot of beautiful women come here for photo ops, Kevin said, glancing around nervously. As for anything unusual, I haven't noticed anything, he added, a hint of confusion in his voice. Ethan nodded. He had thought there might be something special about this place, but it seemed not. Thanks for the information. If you notice anything else, feel free to let me know, Ethan said, a slight smile playing on his lips. Kevin nodded quickly, secretly relieved that he hadn't displeased Ethan. He hadn't forgotten the fear and helplessness he felt when Ethan had controlled his body, a feeling like being a mind trapped in a paralyzed shell. Ethan turned and left, leaving Kevin standing there, still shaken, watching his retreating back. Ethan left and searched the area again carefully, hoping to find any trace Natasha might have left, but ultimately, he came up empty. Helpless, he had no choice but to leave and return to the villa in Harbin. When he walked into the villa, he found it empty. Nina wasn't there. He frowned, a little worried, wondering where she had gone. He took out his phone to call her, but then he noticed an unread message on the screen. He opened it and saw it was from her. It turned out Nina had gone with Maya and Sherry to the Harbin Ice and Snow World. Ethan breathed a sigh of relief. Knowing where they were, Ethan decided not to join them. Instead, he planned to visit the Huafu Trading Company. He didn't teleport this time. He walked to the roadside, hailed a taxi, and gave the driver the address. He then sat back, quietly watching the streets and pedestrians pass by, taking in the city's atmosphere. Since it was snowing, the roads were slippery, and the driver had to slow down for safety. He struck up a conversation with Ethan to pass the time. Young man, you must be here for tourism, right? You're not dressed very warmly. It's not just cold here, it's bone-chilling cold. You'd better put on a few more layers, the driver said, his eyes full of concern. Ethan smiled back. Thanks for the tip, sir. I didn't bring many warm clothes. But I've heard the military greatcoats here are great, cheap and warm. I was planning on buying one. But I've heard the military greatcoats here are great, cheap and warm. I was planning on buying one. Oh, you know about the military greatcoats, the driver said, surprised. They're definitely our top choice for winter. A lot of people wear them, and they're affordable and good quality. If you need one, I can tell you some good places to buy them. Ethan smiled and nodded, feeling that the driver was very warm and hospitable, giving him a more direct understanding of the city's spirit. As the car slowly moved forward, the snowy scenery outside the window gradually unfolded, a pristine white world that was enchanting. Along the way, the driver also told Ethan about many of Harbin's special attractions and delicacies, giving him a deeper insight into the city. Before he knew it, the car had arrived at its destination. Ethan paid the fare and waved goodbye to the driver. Since he had visited the company once before, he wasn't stopped this time and smoothly reached the elevator. He stepped in and pressed the button for the Huafu trading office floor. As the car slowly moved forward, the snowy scenery outside the window gradually unfolded, a pristine white world that was enchanting. He stepped in and pressed the button for the Huafu trading office floor. Just then, he heard a voice shout, "Hey kid, wait for me." Ethan frowned slightly, but still held the closing elevator doors open, waiting for the caller. Soon, a young man, about 30 years old, rushed into the elevator. When he saw that Ethan had pressed the button for Huafu Trading, he couldn't help but scrutinize Ethan from head to toe. "Kid, I haven't seen you around. Are you new?" the man asked with an arrogant air. Ethan gave him a brief glance, not bothering to answer, and stood quietly to the side. However, when the elevator reached its destination, just as Ethan was about to step out, the man roughly shoved him aside. "You kid, you really don't know your place. Who do you think you are, daring to walk in front of me?" the man said with disdain, glaring at Ethan. Ethan's eyes instantly turned cold. He regained his balance and turned to face the man directly. "Move." Ethan's voice was low and firm. The man was startled by Ethan's gaze, but quickly recovered his arrogant demeanor. "Humph, you're quite arrogant, kid. Do you even know who I am? No one at Huafu Trading dares to speak to me like that." The man raised his voice, trying to intimidate Ethan. Ethan was completely unmoved. He took a step forward, and his powerful presence made the man involuntarily retreat a few steps. "I don't care who you are. Don't block my way." Ethan's voice was filled with authority. "Kid, you just wait and see. You've offended me. I'll make sure you can't last at Huafu Trading." With that, Xiaozhang quickly left the elevator. Watching his retreating back, Ethan simply smiled, not taking his words to heart. He turned and walked towards the reception desk. At the front desk, Ethan looked at the young woman there and politely asked, "Excuse me, miss, who was that man just now? Why is he so arrogant? Is he a major client of your company?" The receptionist looked left and right, then lowered her voice. "Handsome, that man isn't a major client. He's our company's sales champion, Xiaozhang, but he really is very arrogant, always bullying other employees. Even I often have to get his packages and buy his coffee. By the way, did you offend him?" Ethan shrugged, looking nonchalant. "No, I didn't offend him. He offended me." Hearing this, the receptionist's eyes widened in curiosity. "Oh, What happened? Tell me all about it. Ethan recounted what had just occurred. After hearing his story, the receptionist's face showed a mix of helplessness and sympathy. She said softly, "Handsome, if you're here for an interview, I advise you to try another company. Xiao Zhang is very petty. He'll definitely target you." Ethan smiled and shook his head. Asterisk target me? In all of China, there are very few who would dare to target me. Asterisk. Just then, Chelsea Chin walked over with a broom. When she saw Ethan, her face instantly lit up with surprise, and she quickly put down her tools and hurried over. "Ethan, why didn't you say you were coming? I would have had Chris pick you up," Chelsea said warmly. Ethan smiled, teasing, "Chelsea, if I had told you beforehand, how would I have known how things were at the company? And honestly, Chris, he really told you to just clean, didn't he? You should at least be head of the cleaning department." Or did Wayne object? Chelsea couldn't help but laugh. "Oh, you always know how to make me happy. But don't worry, Chris treats me very well, and he doesn't make me do any heavy lifting. Besides, I don't have many skills, so being able to do something useful is already great." Ethan smiled and nodded, silently praising Chelsea. Although her husband was the company's PR manager and had a great relationship with him and Wayne, she didn't take her cleaning job lightly. Instead, she clearly understood her abilities and took her work seriously. This down-to-earth attitude greatly pleased Ethan. Ethan smiled and continued to encourage her. "Chelsea, your attitude is truly excellent. I'll speak to Wayne later and get you a raise. Also, the Lunar New Year is coming up soon. You two have been away for a few months. You should go home early and spend a good New Year with your family." Chelsea laughed happily, revealing her white, even teeth, her laughter like a silver bell. "I'll hold you to that. If my salary hasn't increased after the New Year, I'll make sure to get you drunk. As for going home for the New Year, Chris and I have already discussed it. We plan to head back around Minor New Year. Don't worry, I always keep my word. Chelsea, I won't chat with you anymore. I'm going to sit with Wayne for a bit." With that, Ethan smiled and left. After Ethan left, the young receptionist's large eyes sparkled with curiosity. "Chelsea, who is that Ethan? He's not only handsome, but he also knows Mr. Wayne. Tell me about him." Chelsea smiled teasingly. "You little girl, you haven't fallen for my Ethan, have you? But I have to warn you, he's already engaged. And he's not just the owner of our Huafu Trading. Universe Group is also under his control. So, don't think too much, and focus on your work instead." The receptionist's mouth dropped open in surprise, her eyes wide, her face filled with disbelief. She mumbled to herself, "No way? How old does he look? And he's already engaged. That's such a shame." A sense of pity washed over her, but then she slumped like a defeated rooster, looking dejected and disappointed. She silently sighed, lamenting, "I finally found a handsome guy, and he's already taken. How disappointing. Oh, it seems the story of the prince and Cinderella only exists in fairy tales. How could those rich and handsome men in real life ever choose an ordinary girl?" The thought filled her with a sense of helplessness and sadness. After leaving the reception, Ethan quickly walked towards Wayne Wang's office. He pushed open the door, only to his surprise, to find the arrogant Xiao Zhang already inside. Xiao Zhang immediately stood up when he saw Ethan and yelled, "You new guy, do you have no manners? This is the CEO's office. What right do you have to be here? Get out now." Ethan completely ignored him, turning his gaze instead to Wayne, who was trying to stifle his laughter. Ethan said, feigning annoyance, "Wayne, is it really that amusing to watch me get talked down to? Do you want me to ask Dylan to stir up some trouble for you and Sherry?" Wayne finally managed to suppress his laughter. "Ethan, I just couldn't help it. Seeing you get roasted by your own employee was too funny. I never expected something so ridiculous to happen to you. If this were one of those novels we used to read, you'd be about to make a grand entrance and put him in his place, right?" Ha ha ha. Ethan, whose face had been dark, couldn't help but laugh at Wayne's words. "Wayne, you're a CEO now? Can't you be a little less goofy?" "Goofy? No, this is called having a pure heart, understand? All right, start your performance. I can't wait to see you put him in his place," Wayne said with an exaggerated laugh. Seeing Wayne's expectant look, Ethan gave him a helpless glance, then turned to Xiao Zhang. "Pack your things and get out. You're fired." Xiao Zhang was stunned. He looked at Wayne. "Mr. Wang, even if this kid is your friend, he doesn't have the authority to fire me, does he? Besides, I'm the company's sales champion. I bring in almost a third of our business. Don't listen to this idiot." Xiao Zhang believed that as the company's top salesperson with excellent performance, he couldn't be easily fired. But what he didn't know was that Wayne had been looking for an excuse to fire him, and Ethan had just provided the perfect opportunity. Wayne shrugged helplessly, a faint smile on his lips. "I actually do have to listen to this idiot, because he's my boss. Huafu Trading is his company, and I'm just an employee." Hearing this, Xiao Zhang's eyes widened. He stared at Ethan in disbelief, his face a picture of shock. However, he quickly calmed down. After all, he was a sales champion and had a vast network of clients. Being fired simply meant finding another job. It was no big deal to him. Xiao Zhang took a deep breath, composed himself, and then said to Ethan, "Boss, I apologize for my previous rudeness, but please believe that my abilities as the company's sales champion are absolutely unquestionable. Furthermore, I have a big deal with the Lin family of Fengtian on the table. If you insist on firing me, then that deal will surely fall through. So, I advise you to consider carefully and not make a rash decision. He fixed his gaze on Ethan, his eyes betraying a hint of challenge and confidence. Ethan crossed his arms, his gaze calmly fixed on Xiao Zhang, a faint, imperceptible smirk playing on his lips. Xiao Zhang, you think one deal can threaten me? That's not even worth my attention. Xiao Zhang's heart sank. He hadn't expected Ethan to be so unyielding. Still, he didn't give up. Mr. Yi, don't be impulsive. If this deal falls through, the company will suffer a significant loss. Ethan looked at him impassively and said coldly, I won't repeat myself. Now pack your things and get out. Xiao Zhang's face darkened. He gritted his teeth and said, Ethan, you'll regret this. With that, he turned and slammed the door as he left. After Xiao Zhang slammed the door, the office immediately erupted. Colleagues whispered amongst themselves, discussing the incident. Li, from the sales department, frowned and said worriedly, Xiao Zhang is our sales champion. If he leaves, what will happen to that big deal with the Lin family? Zhao, next to him, shook his head. Although Xiao Zhang is good at sales, he's also very arrogant. The boss must have his reasons for firing him. Ms. Lu from finance put down her pen and said, I think the boss did the right thing. Even if someone is capable, if they don't follow management and threaten the company, they're a liability. Wang, a new intern, looked nervous. Will this affect our company's business? I just started, and I don't want any trouble. Old Zhang from administration seemed quite calm. We just need to focus on our own work. The boss will surely have a solution. Everyone had different opinions, but they were all watching how the situation would unfold and how Ethan would handle it. In the office, Wayne had lost his smile. He looked at Ethan and said seriously, Ethan, I had planned to secure the Lin family deal first, and then find a way to fire Xiao Zhang. But given the current situation, we'll need to re-engage with the Lin family. Hearing this, Ethan chuckled slightly, a hint of doubt in his eyes. Wayne, Xiao Zhang is just a sales champion. Does he really have that much influence over the Lin family's decisions? I don't think that's likely. Wayne smiled wryly and explained to Ethan, Xiao Zhang is classmates with a collateral descendant of the Lin family, and they're very close. That descendant is in charge of the Lin family's deal. Because of this, he could indeed influence the Lin family's decision, or even sabotage our cooperation. What do you plan to do now? Or should we just acquire the Lin family's company? You certainly have the money. Ethan looked at Wayne helplessly. Acquiring them is an option, but I don't think it's entirely necessary. How about this? You send someone to communicate with them normally first. If we run into problems, I'll step in to resolve it. Just then, Li from the sales department lightly knocked and entered the office. He said anxiously to both of them, Boss, Mr. Wang, the Lin Group just called to terminate their cooperation with us. He couldn't help but glance at Ethan. Hearing this, Ethan frowned, thinking Xiao Zhang had acted quickly. But these minor tactics were child's play to him. He turned to Wayne and said, I'll handle the Lin family. As for Xiao Zhang, you can put the word out. Tell other companies that anyone who dares to hire him is going against me, and they should be prepared for my retaliation. Wayne smiled. I'll get right on it. That Xiao Zhang really doesn't know what's good for him. To provoke you and still be so arrogant, he deserves whatever he gets. Then, he turned to Li, his expression serious. You can leave now. You don't need to worry about this. Li nodded and left the office. After Li left, Wayne looked at Ethan and asked, Ethan, what do you plan to do? Ethan shrugged, a casual smile on his face. It's simple, isn't it? I'll just go directly to the Lin family. If they don't agree, then like you said, I'll buy out the Lin Group. Wayne frowned slightly at Ethan's words, seemingly with some reservations. He hesitated, then couldn't help but advise. Ethan, although we have enough power, wouldn't that be too aggressive? The Lin Group isn't a small company after all. If we successfully acquire them, the subsequent management and operations would require a lot of energy and resources. Moreover, such a move could alarm and displease other influential families, which wouldn't be good for our future development. Ethan crossed his arms confidently. Wayne, you worry too much. Our current strength is enough to handle any potential problems. If the Lin family cooperates, then everything will be fine. If not, they'll have brought it upon themselves. Ethan pondered for a moment, then slowly nodded. You do make some valid points. In that case, I'll go visit old Mr. Lin first and see how things stand. As he finished speaking, he quickly pulled out his phone and expertly dialed a number. Hello, Peter Zhao, are you still in Fengtian? Ethan asked, his tone calm. Ethan, are you coming to Fengtian? Send me your address. I'll come pick you up right away. And I have great news. At General Lin's birthday banquet last time, when I presented him with that longevity pill you gave me, his eyes nearly popped out. Haha. Peter was as excited as a child, rambling on about the scene. Ethan smiled faintly. I'm still in Harbin. I'd like to meet General Lin. I need you to help me arrange it. Hearing Ethan's words, Peter frowned slightly in confusion. He didn't understand why Ethan would suddenly want to meet General Lin. However, Out of trust and respect for Ethan, he didn't ask further. He readily agreed. No problem, Ethan, I'll contact him right away. I'll let you know once I have news. After hanging up, Peter didn't waste any time and immediately drove to the Lin family residence. Along the way, his thoughts raced, trying to guess Ethan's reason for wanting to meet General Lin. However, with limited information, he couldn't come to a definite conclusion. 20 minutes later, Peter arrived at the Lin family. Just as he stepped through the gates, a familiar figure appeared, Julian Zhou. They looked at each other, both somewhat surprised. Peter walked over, grinning. Julian, aren't you serving in the Navy in Qingdao? Why are you in Fengtian? Did you retire? Julian felt a bit helpless with this lively character. He deliberately put on a stern face. You, kid, if you can't speak properly, say less. Retired? Can't I just be on vacation? Peter looked enlightened and quickly said, Sorry, Julian, I didn't know. I thought military personnel didn't get vacations. By the way, are you here at the Lin family to see Melinda Fong? When are you two getting married? I, your future brother-in-law, need to prepare a proper gift. Just then, a sharp voice called out. Peter Zhao, are you trying to get yourself killed? I haven't agreed to anything. If you dare to say that again, believe me, I'll bite you to death. Lily Lin stomped over, glaring at Peter, her eyes flashing with anger. A blush spread across her face. Peter's words had clearly upset her. Seeing this, Peter quickly smiled apologetically. Lily, don't be angry. I was just joking. Please, forgive me this time. As he spoke, he put on a pitiful expression, trying to win her sympathy. However, Lily didn't let him off easily. She continued to glare at him. Peter Zhao, if you ever dare to speak carelessly again, just wait until I deal with you. With that, she turned and left, leaving Peter looking embarrassed. Julian Zhou watched the scene and couldn't help but laugh. He clapped Peter on the shoulder. You'd better not make Lily angry in the future, or you'll have a hard time. Peter shook his head helplessly, giving Julian a bitter smile. Lily's temper is getting fiercer and fiercer. I really don't dare to provoke her easily. Julian chuckled. Girls are sensitive. Just be careful with what you say. At that moment, Melinda Fong came out and saw Peter and Julian standing there. She asked, puzzled, What are you two talking about? Peter quickly said, Nothing, just chatting. Julian Zhou smiled slightly, a gentle look in his eyes, and explained softly to Melinda. Peter just said he was your future brother-in-law, and Lily, who happened to pass by, overheard it. She gave Peter quite a scolding. Melinda Fong smiled faintly, looking at Peter with interest. She teased. Peter, it seems you need to try harder. Lily isn't that easy to win over. But speaking of which, is there something you needed today? At this, Peter suddenly remembered the true purpose of his visit. His expression became serious and solemn. He said sincerely, Melinda, my friend Ethan wants to visit General Lin. So I came specifically to ask if your grandfather is available recently. Julian Zhou's eyes lit up immediately when he heard Ethan was coming to the Lin family. He had been eager to make his acquaintance since their last meeting on Westland Island, and this was a perfect opportunity. Melinda said, I'll have to ask grandfather. I'm not sure about his schedule. Peter quickly replied, Then please, Melinda, help me ask. Melinda nodded and went to contact General Lin. A short while later, she returned and informed Peter, Grandfather said he has time tonight or tomorrow night. Peter's face lit up with joy. That's wonderful. I'll tell Ethan right away. In the CEO's office at Huafu Trading in Harbin, a faint scent of tea permeated the spacious and bright room. Ethan sat comfortably on the sofa, casually chatting with Wayne Wong about the company's recent affairs. However, just then, an urgent knock broke the tranquility. Lee from the sales department rushed in, his forehead covered in sweat, clearly having encountered an emergency. Chairman Yi, Mr. Wong, Lee gasped, his voice anxious. 3 more clients from Fengtian just canceled their contracts. He paused, his voice growing heavier. One of the clients told me it was because the Lin family requested it. Hearing this news, Ethan frowned, his eyes instantly sharpening. Although he didn't truly care about the small amount of money, this was clearly a blatant provocation against him. Wayne, however, seemed unfazed. Lee, Mr. Yi and I are already aware. Go and reassure the employees. The Lin family matter will be resolved soon. Despite his inner urgency, Lee had no effective solution and eventually left with a helpless expression. Just then, Wayne's phone suddenly rang. He pressed the answer button and put it on speaker, and Xiao Zhang's arrogant voice came through. Mr. Wong, you've received my gift, haven't you? Haha, several clients have already canceled their cooperation. And don't worry, there will be more to come. Of course, if you and Chairman Yi personally invite me back and transfer 10% of the company shares to me for free, I can guarantee that all those clients, including the Lin family, will resume cooperation with Huafu. You should both seriously consider it. Ethan scoffed. Quite a big mouth you have. Aren't you afraid of biting off more than you can chew? Chairman Yi, my appetite has always been excellent. No need for you to worry. I advise you to consider my terms. After all, who would turn down money these days? Xiao Zhang said smugly. Wayne hung up the phone and was about to speak, but then Ethan's phone suddenly rang urgently. He glanced at the screen, saw it was Peter Zhao calling, and pressed the answer button, holding the phone to his ear. Peter, how did the contact go? Ethan, I've arranged it. General Lin is available tonight or tomorrow night. When would you like to come over? Peter replied excitedly. Ethan thought for a moment and decided to go to Fengtian that very evening. He told Peter, tonight then. Send me the location, and I'll come find you in Fengtian. Peter replied, all right, I'll be waiting for you at the Lin family's place. After they ended the call, Ethan stood up and said to Wayne, Wayne, I've arranged things with the Lin family. I'm going to Fengtian now. Just wait for my news. With that, he turned and left the office. Meanwhile, Peter Zhao told Melinda Fong about Ethan's planned visit that evening and sent Ethan the address. Then, he went to find Lily Lin. Peter quickly found Lily and informed her of Ethan's visit that evening. Lily asked, somewhat puzzled, why is Ethan suddenly coming to our family? Do you know why he's visiting? Peter scratched his head, looking a little awkward. I don't know that, but it shouldn't be anything major. Don't worry. In the evening, Ethan finally arrived at the Lin family residence. Peter Zhao had been waiting by the gate for a long time. When he saw Ethan, he immediately walked up to him. Ethan, you're here? Come on in, Peter said with a smile. Ethan nodded, following Peter into the Lin family hall. General Lin was sitting in the main seat, with Melinda and Lily beside him. Mr. Yi, I've heard much about you, General Lin said with a smile. Ethan smiled slightly and replied politely, General Lin, you are too kind. As it is our first meeting today, this is just a small token of my appreciation. Please don't mind it. With that, he gently placed 2 exquisite boxes of spiritual tea on the table. Seeing the 2 boxes of spiritual tea on the table, General Lin's eyes immediately lit up, and he quickly asked Melinda to bring the tea over. He carefully opened one of the jade tea boxes, gently inhaled the aroma of the tea leaves, and then said with great excitement, That's right. It's spiritual tea. Mr. Yi, I absolutely love this gift. Ethan, however, was a little puzzled. Besides giving spiritual tea to his family and friends, he had only given some to Director Zhong. Although the Lin family had some influence, it shouldn't be possible for them to obtain spiritual tea. So Ethan asked, General Lin, do you also have this spiritual tea? General Lin quickly shook his head and explained, I only had the good fortune to taste it once at an old friend's house. I even tried to get some from him back then, but he wouldn't give me any. Now this is perfect. I'll invite him over one day and show him how I can tease him about it. After saying that, General Lin burst into hearty laughter. Haha, as long as General Lin likes it, Ethan said with a smile. Like it? Of course I like it, General Lin said, his face beaming with smiles. Mr. Yi, you are too kind. This gift is truly too generous. I don't know how to thank you enough. General Lin, you flatter me, Ethan said humbly. Mr. Yi, are you visiting this old man today because of something specific? If there is, please speak freely. Anything within my power, I will not refuse, General Lin said with a smile. Ethan didn't bother with pleasantries and got straight to the point. General Lin, I came to visit you today because I wanted to ask, are the Lin family's actions against my company and Harbin the family's decision, or merely the actions of a few individuals? While I don't care about the small sum of money involved, this is a clear act of bullying against me, and I cannot pretend not to see it. Hearing this, General Lin's face showed a puzzled expression, and he quickly asked, Mr. Yi, is there some misunderstanding? How could the Lin family possibly target you? Although the Lin family has some influence in the Northeast, compared to Universe Group, we are nothing. If we truly went against Universe Group, wouldn't that be seeking our own demise? He then turned to Melinda Fong, speaking sternly. Melinda, go and investigate immediately. Find out which fool dared to target Mr. Yi. Melinda Fong quickly agreed and hurried off to investigate. The room fell silent for a moment. Ethan quietly sipped his tea, his gaze fixed on General Zhou, seemingly trying to discern something from his subtle facial changes. However, General Zhou maintained a composed expression, only a slight furrow in his brow betraying his unease. Shortly after, Melinda returned, her face somewhat pale. She was slightly out of breath as she reported, Grandfather, it's been confirmed. It was Lin Chong from the collateral branch who acted on his own initiative. A classmate of his, Xiao Zhang, asked him to target Mr. Ye's business. Hearing this, General Zhou slammed his hand on the table, the sound echoing loudly in the quiet room. He roared, this scoundrel. For his own selfish desires, he dared to cause such massive trouble for the Lin family. Doesn't he understand the power of Universe Group? He's utterly clueless. Then, he turned to Ethan, his face full of apology. Mr. Yi, this is due to the Lin family's failure in discipline. I will certainly give you a satisfactory explanation. Ethan narrowed his eyes, a hint of coldness in his gaze. General Zhou, I hope you mean what you say. I, Ethan Yi, have always preferred not to make enemies, and I don't want to escalate things. After all, more friends are better than more enemies. But if the Lin family doesn't handle this properly, then don't blame me for being less than polite. I, Ethan Yi, am not one to be easily bullied. General Zhou nodded repeatedly, fine beads of sweat already forming on his forehead. Mr. Yi, rest assured, I will summon Lin Chong immediately to apologize to you in person. Soon, Lin Chong was brought in. He already knew he had caused a huge mess. He stood there trembling, his head bowed, not daring to look up. Hurry up and apologize to Mr. Yi, General Zhou demanded, his voice filled with anger and authority. Lin Chong stammered, Mr. Yi, I was wrong. I was deluded, misled by a scoundrel. I beg you, in your generosity, please spare me this time. I will never dare to do it again. Ethan let out a cold laugh, a sound that sent a shiver down everyone's spine. Spare you? What about my losses? Do you know how much my company in Harbin has been affected by your reckless actions? General Zhou quickly interjected. Mr. Yi, the Lin family will compensate for all losses twofold. Furthermore, we will severely punish Lin Chong and ensure that nothing similar ever happens again. Ethan's expression softened slightly, and his tone became a little more placid. All right, I hope the Lin family avoids such incidents in the future. In business, I, Ethan Yi, value fairness and harmony. But if anyone deliberately provokes me, I will not let them off lightly. With that, he stood up and left the Lin family residence. The Lin family members watched Ethan's retreating back, all letting out a collective sigh of relief. General Zhou wiped the sweat from his forehead, murmuring with lingering fear, It's a good thing, mister. You didn't directly act against the Lin family, or we would have been ruined. Then, he glared fiercely at Lin Chong. What are you still doing here? Get out. You infuriate me just by looking at you. Lin Chong's face was ashen, his eyes filled with fear and unease. He dared not speak another word. He knew he had caused a major disaster this time, and if it weren't for General Zhou's pleading, he would likely be crippled by now. On the other side, as soon as Ethan left the Lin family, Peter Zhao chased after him. Ethan, wait for me. Peter called out, struggling to catch up, panting. Ethan stopped upon hearing him and turned around, a faint smile playing on his lips. He teased, Why are you chasing me? Aren't you staying with your Lily Lin? Hearing this, Peter felt a pang of helplessness, but a bitter smile crossed his face. He leaned on his knees, gasping for breath, trying to calm himself. After a while, he finally spoke. Ugh, I don't know what Lily wants. Sometimes she's nice, sometimes she's not. Never mind her. Ethan, are you heading back to Harbin? Ethan nodded, his tone relaxed. Yes, there are some things I need to deal with there. By the way, how have you been lately? Have you run into any trouble? Peter shook his head, indicating he was fine. Then, he suddenly looked up and asked, Ethan, I don't have anything important to do. How about I come with you to Harbin for a bit? Ethan paused for a moment, then smiled and agreed. Of course, if you want to go, then come with me. Just then, a military-registered SUV slowly pulled up and stopped right in front of them. The door opened, and Julian Zhou stepped out, walking directly towards Ethan with a smile. Mr. Yi, long time no see. After our last farewell on Westland Island, I haven't had a chance to properly thank you. I didn't expect you to be in Fengtian today. Since you're here, why don't you come to my house for a visit? My grandfather has been wanting to meet you too, Julian said with a smile. Ethan was about to decline, but when he heard that General Zhou wanted to meet him, he hesitated. After all, General Zhou was a commander of the Northeast Military Region, a general in the Chinese military, and a man of integrity who had made immense contributions to the nation. His eldest son had even died for his country, buried on a southern battlefield. Such a revered figure made it difficult for Ethan to simply refuse. Ethan thought for a moment, then finally nodded. Since General Zhou wishes to see me, then I shall make the trip. Julian Zhou's smile widened. He quickly jogged to the car and respectfully opened the door for Ethan. The car sped off, and the group soon arrived at the Zhou family residence. As they entered the courtyard, they saw General Zhou sitting in a wicker chair in the living room, holding a newspaper, completely absorbed. Grandfather, I've brought Mr. Yi, Julian said loudly, his voice filled with excitement. General Zhou put down his newspaper and stood up, his eyes sharp as he looked at Ethan. He laughed heartily. Young Ethan, I've been looking forward to your visit. His eyes were full of eagerness and anticipation. Ethan quickly stepped forward and bowed slightly. General Zhou, I've heard much about you, he said with profound respect. General Zhou nodded, his eyes full of admiration. Then he changed the subject. I hear you're also doing very well in the business world, but I imagine there must be quite a few troubles there too. The marketplace is like a battlefield, with all sorts of overt and covert attacks, impossible to guard against. Ethan smiled. There have been some challenges, but I've managed. I believe that as long as one adheres to principles and acts with integrity, one won't be easily defeated. His eyes were firm and confident. General Zhou's gaze was deep. He said slowly, If there's anything you need help with, just ask. In this part of the Northeast, this old man still has some influence. You saved Julian's life, and you are a benefactor to our Zhou family. Let's not be strangers. Ethan quickly said, General Zhou, I appreciate your kindness. Unless absolutely necessary, I truly wouldn't dare to trouble you. At this, Julian Zhou interjected, Mr. Yi, please don't be so polite. My grandfather genuinely wants to help you. General Zhou gave Julian a look. Ethan has his own considerations. Then he looked back at Ethan. But young Ethan, come visit more often when you have time. We can chat more. Ethan nodded in agreement. Certainly. It's an honor to converse with you, General Zhou. I learn a great deal. Then it's settled, General Zhou said, smiling as he patted Ethan's shoulder, his eyes full of admiration and affection. By the way, young Ethan, this old man has a favor to ask of you. General Zhou suddenly looked at Ethan seriously, his tone tinged with a request. Ethan looked at him with a puzzled expression. He wondered how General Zhou, given his standing in China, could need his help. Still, he immediately replied, Please say it, General Zhou. Whatever I can do, I will not refuse. General Zhou nodded slightly, a flicker of gratitude in his eyes. Then he turned to Julian Zhou beside him, giving a somewhat helpless smile. He continued, You should know that Julian is the only child of my third generation. Ever since the Westland Island incident, he's been pestering me to let him join the 9th Bureau. I had no choice but to go to Director Zhong, but that boy flat out refused me. You are also the chief inspector of the 9th Bureau. Could you perhaps find a way for Julian to get in? Ethan frowned slightly, a look of difficulty on his face. General Zhou, you must be aware that the selection for the 9th Bureau has extremely strict standards and procedures. It's not something I can decide on my own. Moreover, you should also be aware of the recent attack in Harbin. The danger in the 9th Bureau is far greater than where Julian serves in the Qingdao Navy. You only have this one grandson. Aren't you afraid he might be in danger? General Zhou sighed. Ethan, I know it's against the rules, but Julian truly aspires to this. And ever since the Westland Island incident, his mind has matured greatly, and he has developed enough determination and perseverance. As for danger, there's nothing to fear. Our Zhou family men have never been afraid of death. Julian Zhou eagerly added, Brother Ethan, I promise that once I join the 9th Bureau, I will train hard and never let you or grandfather down. Ethan was silent for a moment, then slowly said, All right, General Zhou, I can give Julian a chance to participate in the 9th Bureau's preliminary selection. If he can pass all the assessments, then he can officially join. But let me be clear, if he doesn't meet the standards, there's nothing more I can do. General Zhou's face broke into a relieved smile. Good. Then thank you, young Ethan. Julian Zhou also said excitedly, Brother Ethan, don't worry, I will definitely pass the assessment. Ethan nodded, then turned to General Zhou, looking at him seriously. General Zhou, I've recently received some intelligence that the U.S., in alliance with Japan, Korea, and Russia's Rakshasa organization, seems to have a plan targeting China. Do you have any information regarding this? Hearing this news, General Zhou's face became grim. He frowned and said in a heavy tone, These scoundrels, led by the U.S., do they really think China is still what it was 100 years ago? If they dare to provoke us, I will make them pay. Ethan saw General Zhou's reaction and inwardly sighed with admiration. Though General Zhou was advanced in years, his patriotism and soldier's spirit remained as strong as ever. However, from General Zhou's expression, he had not received any information about this plan. Ethan thought that if even a high-ranking figure like General Zhou hadn't acquired relevant information, then the plan was likely still in its confidential stage. But regardless, he would remain vigilant, ready to face any challenges that might arise. Just then, a guard entered the room, saluted General Zhou, and reported, Commander Zhou, dinner is ready. Please proceed to the dining room. General Zhou nodded slightly in acknowledgement. Then he turned to Ethan and Peter Zhao, who was sitting quietly, and smiled. Young Ethan, Peter, you both come along. Let's have a simple meal together and share a couple of drinks. Ethan and Peter quickly stood up and followed General Zhou to the dining room. In the dining room, the food, though not overly lavish, was full of the cozy warmth characteristic of a home-cooked meal. General Zhou sat firmly at the head of the table, warmly inviting Ethan and Peter to sit. Come now, let's not talk about anything bothersome today. Let's just eat well and drink well. General Zhou laughed heartily, then reached for his glass. Ethan and Peter also raised their glasses, and the atmosphere gradually became relaxed and lively. After 3 rounds of drinks, a flush slowly appeared on General Zhou's face, and he began to open up. Young Ethan, tell me, how many challenges do you think our country will face in the future? Ethan fell into contemplation. After a moment, he replied very solemnly. General Zhou, no matter how many challenges there are, as long as we work together, there's no obstacle we cannot overcome. General Zhou nodded with satisfaction, then turned his gaze to Peter Zhao. Young Peter, you shouldn't be so aimless and careless all the time. You should learn more from Ethan. Peter scratched his head, smiling sheepishly. Commander Zhou, I understand. I'll definitely work harder from now on. Just then, General Zhou's phone suddenly rang. He glanced at the caller ID, and his expression instantly became serious. You two continue eating here. I need to take this call. A while later, General Zhou returned, his brow furrowed, a hint of anxiety in his eyes. He slowly walked to Ethan, speaking with a heavy tone. Young Ethan, I've encountered an emergency and must deal with it immediately. My apologies, but I have to leave you now. With that, he turned to Julian Zhou, instructing, Julian, take good care of young Ethan and Peter. Julian nodded in understanding. General Zhou said no more. He turned and walked away quickly, his steps hurried. His figure gradually disappeared from sight, leaving Ethan and Peter looking puzzled. Julian Zhou noticed Ethan and Peter looking somewhat dazed. He cleared his throat and said, Don't worry. My grandfather is always like this. Whenever there's an emergency, he gives it his all. We'll sit for a bit and see how things develop. Ethan recovered and nodded. Yes, I just wonder what kind of emergency it is. Peter, meanwhile, mumbled, Yeah, General Zhou is already so old, yet he still works so hard. However, an hour passed. The three had finished their meal, but General Zhou still hadn't returned. A growing sense of unease settled in Ethan's heart. He felt that this matter was not as simple as it seemed. Just then, Julian Zhou's phone rang. After he finished the call, his face was grave. Ethan, grandfather's situation is quite urgent. He needs you to help investigate what's going on, Julian said seriously. Ethan didn't dare to delay. He quickly stood up and followed Julian to the command center. In the command center, various complex data and images were displayed on a large screen. General Zhou stood in front of the screen, his expression serious, discussing something with several military officers. Seeing them enter, General Zhou gestured for them to come closer. We just received confirmed intelligence that an unknown force has appeared in the border region. Their movements are very secretive, and their objective is currently unclear, General Zhou said rapidly. Ethan frowned deeply. General Zhou, what should we do next? General Zhou's gaze was firm. We must quickly uncover their true nature and be prepared for all possibilities. Ethan, you have a sharp mind and great power. I order you to immediately proceed to the border to investigate the situation. Julian, you will handle the logistical support. Ethan and Julian responded in unison. Yes, sir. Mission accomplished. Ethan wasted no time. He quickly left the command center, preparing to head to the border. Julian immediately threw himself into preparing the logistical support, communicating and coordinating intensely with relevant personnel to ensure that supplies, intelligence, and all other aspects could effectively support Ethan's mission. Meanwhile, at the border, a subtle strangeness permeated the silence. The land was shrouded in night, as if covered by a mysterious veil. The moonlight was pallid, making the area appear even more eerie and terrifying. The night wind howled, making a mournful sound, like wailing spirits. Ethan, riding his flying sword, looked down on everything from high altitude. His eyes were as sharp as an eagle's, not missing a single detail. His psychic energy surged out like a tide, constantly scanning every inch of the land below, searching for hidden secrets. As time passed, Ethan's frown deepened. He found that the situation here was even more complex than he had imagined. Not only were there various strange creatures appearing, but also some mysterious auras were faintly discernible. All of this made him uneasy and vigilant. Suddenly, a dark shadow flashed through the forest below. Ethan's heart tightened. He quickly maneuvered his flying sword to dive down. However, when he reached the spot where the shadow had disappeared, he found nothing. The surroundings were eerily quiet, with only the rustling of leaves in the wind. Ethan took a deep breath and continued to release his psychic energy to investigate. Just then, a low roar echoed from a distance, filled with anger and threat. Ethan unhesitatingly sped towards the direction of the sound. As he gradually approached, he saw a humanoid monster appear before him. It was tall and walked upright, possessing a human-like body but topped with a bear's head. The bear's head was massive and terrifying, its furry face embedded with fierce eyes that gleamed with cruelty. Its mouth was wide, revealing sharp fangs, as if it could easily tear apart any prey. Ethan watched the strange half-human, half-bear creature before him with wary eyes, filled with confusion and vigilance. He didn't understand why such a monster would suddenly appear in the border forest. However, as he pondered, the monster's eyes flashed with a bloodthirsty glint, and it quickly raised its immense, powerful claw to strike at him with full force. Faced with the sudden attack, Ethan reacted swiftly, moving his body slightly to the side, narrowly avoiding the monster's blow. He then quickly put distance between himself and the monster, maintaining a safe range. Seeing its attack miss, the monster grew even more irritable, its bloodthirsty desire intensifying. It began to attack Ethan frantically, its ferocious aura so powerful that even the surrounding trees couldn't withstand it and began to fall. While dodging the monster's attacks, Ethan calmly observed, searching for its weaknesses. After some effort, he finally discovered that the monster's right flank was relatively less defended. Concentrating all his strength, he darted towards the monster, his sword striking directly at its weak point. The monster sensed the impending danger, but it was too late to dodge. The sword tip pierced its body accurately, and with a burst of intense pain, the monster let out a desperate roar. Despite being severely wounded, the beast did not easily fall. Instead, it struggled even more fiercely. Ethan held tightly to his sword hilt, never loosening his grip, continuously channeling his power into the blade as he engaged in a life-and-death struggle with the monster. After an intense battle, the monster finally fell to the ground, its eyes unfocused and its life fading. Ethan carefully scanned the surroundings with his psychic energy, ensuring no enemies were lurking in the shadows, before finally reading the monster's memories. Time passed, minute by minute. A few minutes later, Ethan frowned deeply, a hint of doubt and worry in his eyes. It turned out he hadn't found any useful information from the monster's memory. The images in its mind were very blurry. He could only vaguely see that the monster had lived in a mysterious laboratory since it was young, subjected to various experiments daily. Just recently, it had been injected with an unknown liquid, and then, in the next moment, it found itself in this vast forest. Ethan pursed his lips, his confusion deepening. Where was this mysterious laboratory? What was the effect of that unknown liquid? He decided to report this situation to General Zhou first. Taking out his communication device, Ethan quickly informed General Zhou of his findings. General Zhou was silent for a moment on the other end, then said, "Ethan, continue your deeper investigation. You must find more clues." Ethan acknowledged, put away his communication device, and scanned his surroundings again. He carefully proceeded in the direction the monster had appeared. Along the way, only his faint footsteps echoed in the silent forest. After walking for an unknown duration, sparse footprints appeared ahead. Ethan unleashed his powerful psychic energy, like an invisible force, tracing the direction of the footprints. With his psychic energy constantly delving deeper, his perception gradually extended further through forests, rivers, and mountains. Finally, his psychic energy reached a small town on the Russian border. However, when his psychic energy entered the town, the trail suddenly went cold. Ethan frowned, feeling very puzzled. He again concentrated, trying to find more clues, but still found nothing. Helpless, he sighed and decided to temporarily abandon this lead. Ethan used his teleportation ability and instantly returned to the humanoid monster. He put it into his system space, ensuring its safety. Then, he teleported again, quickly returning to General Zhou's command center. Back at the command center, General Zhou immediately approached him, asking anxiously, "Well, what did you find?" Ethan shook his head helplessly and recounted his experiences in the forest and the Russian border town. General Zhou listened, his expression grave, and fell into deep thought. After a moment, General Zhou looked up, his gaze firm. "It doesn't matter if the trail is cold. We'll approach it from other angles." Ethan nodded, then from his system space, he retrieved the now lifeless humanoid monster and gently placed it on the open ground. He took a deep breath and slowly began. "General Zhou, this is the humanoid monster I encountered. Based on my judgment, it seems to possess some intelligence, but its strength isn't particularly high. More importantly, I suspect this incident might be related to the US and their plans." Everyone present was astonished to hear Ethan's words. They gathered around, carefully observing the humanoid monster's corpse. Its body was human-like, but its head was that of a bear, and its sharp claws were chilling. Its body was human-like, but its head was that of a bear, and its sharp claws were chilling. Confusion filled everyone's minds. Why would such a monster appear here? General Zhou was the first to recover. A hint of worry flashed in his eyes. He said with a heavy voice, "Ethan, could this be a legendary beastman? If so, then we have a real problem." Ethan shook his head and explained, "To be precise, this should be an artificially created beastman. I've seen research data on this in the Japanese Chimoto family's secret base before, but I destroyed all of it. I just don't know which organization or force created this artificially produced beastman that has appeared this time." General Zhou frowned, lost in thought. "We must find out the force behind this as soon as possible, otherwise the consequences will be unimaginable." Just then, a research scientist rushed in, holding a test report. "General Zhou, preliminary tests show that this beastman has traces of special genetic modification, and the technology used is very advanced, beyond our current understanding." Ethan's expression was grave. "It seems the mastermind behind this is deeply hidden, and their technology far exceeds our imagination." General Zhou decisively ordered, "Immediately organize a team of experts to conduct a comprehensive and in-depth study of this beastman. We must find clues." Then, General Zhou looked at Ethan with a grave, serious expression. "Young Ethan, this matter is no small thing. I must report it to my superiors. Without a doubt, the Ninth Bureau will take over the subsequent handling of this incident. I hope you can quickly find this mysterious organization and completely destroy it. If there is anything I can assist or cooperate with during this process, I will provide my full support." Ethan nodded vigorously, his voice firm. "General Zhou, please rest assured. Protecting China and safeguarding national security is our bounden duty and mission. I will do my utmost to find their traces as soon as possible and wipe them out." General Zhou nodded in satisfaction, a hint of relief in his expression. He continued, "Young Ethan, there's nothing else here that needs to be handled at the moment. You and Julian can go back and get some rest. I won't be going home tonight. I'll stay here to command and ensure everything is properly arranged. After Ethan and Julian left, General Zhou immediately plunged into intense work. He organized personnel and coordinated resources, creating the best conditions for the expert team's research. Ethan and Julian, back at the Zhou family residence, also found it hard to rest. Julian paced back and forth in his room, his expression worried. Ethan, this situation might be more complex than we imagined. Ethan sat on the sofa, his brow furrowed so tightly it seemed twisted. He sighed helplessly. Yes, and they didn't leave a single clue. Just then, Peter Zhao emerged from his room, rubbing his sleepy eyes. Seeing the two men looking troubled, he offered comfort. Ethan, Julian, I think you two should get some rest. As the saying goes, the cart will find its way to the mountain. What problems can you solve by worrying here? You might as well get a good night's sleep, get refreshed, and perhaps good news will come tomorrow morning. Hearing Peter Zhao's words, the two exchanged glances and nodded. They then stood up and headed towards their rooms. Ethan said as he walked, "All right, then we'll go back and rest. I hope everything goes smoothly tomorrow." With that, he entered the Zhou family guest room and gently closed the door. Julian silently followed behind, returning to his own room. The entire living room suddenly fell quiet, leaving only Peter Zhao standing there, thoughtfully gazing out the window. Meanwhile, General Zhou worked tirelessly into the night. The expert team's preliminary report came out, but it didn't contain much valuable information. He rubbed his temples, the pressure in his heart growing heavier. Just then, he received an urgent notification from his superiors. The notice explicitly stated that the humanoid monster was to be immediately transported to the capital by military aircraft. The notice explicitly stated that the humanoid monster was to be immediately transported to the capital by military aircraft. At the same time, all personnel involved were required to sign a strict confidentiality agreement to ensure the secrecy and security of the incident. The subsequent handling of this special event would be entirely the responsibility of the 9th Bureau. The next morning, at the first hint of dawn, Ethan was already awake. After washing up, he sat quietly on the sofa in the living room. Not long after, Julian Zhou and Peter Zhao also came to the living room. Both looked a bit sleepy, but managed to perk up and sit beside Ethan. A moment of silence passed before Ethan broke it, a hint of worry in his voice. "I wonder how General Zhou is doing." As he spoke, General Zhou walked into the living room, his face looking very tired, a trace of concern in his eyes. Seeing General Zhou, the three immediately stood up and went to his side. Julian eagerly asked, "Grandfather, how is the situation?" General Zhou sighed heavily and slowly replied, "There's still no progress. My superiors have decided to let the 9th Bureau take over this matter." Then, he took out a confidentiality agreement from his pocket, handed it to Julian, and solemnly instructed, "Sign this confidentiality agreement. Remember, everything that happened yesterday must be kept strictly confidential. You cannot reveal a single word to anyone." Julian took the agreement, read it carefully, and signed his name without hesitation. He then returned the agreement to General Zhou, his expression serious, assuring him that he would abide by the rules. General Zhou nodded, a trace of relief on his face. He then turned to Peter Zhao. Seeing General Zhou look at him, Peter's heart tightened, and he quickly explained, "General Zhou, I don't know anything. After Ethan and Julian came back last night, I didn't dare to ask a single word." General Zhou nodded slightly. Then, he turned to Julian Zhou and said in a serious tone, "Julian, you must prepare to participate in the 9th Bureau's selection as soon as possible. This is a rare opportunity for you, and a test of your abilities. I hope you can make the most of this chance and demonstrate your strength and potential." Julian nodded firmly. "Don't worry, grandfather. I'll give it my all." Then, a look of worry crossed his face, and he said with concern, "But grandfather, I'm still a bit worried about your health. How about this? I'll ask my parents for some leave to come back and see you, so someone can take care of you." General Zhou waved his hand gently, reassuring him, "No need, my boy. Your parents are busy with important duties in the southern military region. Their tasks are arduous. They cannot easily leave their posts. As for my health, I'm still quite robust. You don't need to worry too much. Now, I need to rest for a while. You go attend to your own affairs." With that, General Zhou slowly rose and walked towards his room. Watching his grandfather's retreating figure, Julian felt a pang of reluctance and concern. However, he knew his grandfather's personality and understood that his decision couldn't be changed. So, they could only silently wish him good health and well-being. Julian sighed helplessly, then turned to Ethan, his voice firm. "I'm leaving for the capital soon. Do you two want to come along?" Ethan gently shook his head. "Peter and I still need to go to Harbin, so we won't be returning to the capital just yet. In a moment, I will give you a number. When you arrive in the capital, you can contact him, and he will arrange your selection process." As he spoke, Ethan sent Mu Changqing's contact information to Julian. The three chatted for a bit longer, after which Ethan and Peter Zhao left the Zhou family residence. As they walked out, Ethan turned to Peter. "Peter, Do you have anything else you need to bring? If not, we should be going. Peter replied with a hint of confusion. I've packed all my things. They're in the storage pouch you gave me. But there's a small problem. Are we driving to Harbin this time or flying? If we're flying, I don't think we've bought tickets yet. Ethan smiled mysteriously, a confident smirk playing on his lips. He said softly, Today, I'm going to give you a taste of speed and excitement. With that, he swiftly summoned his flying sword, his movements fluid and natural. The sword glowed with a faint light, its blade incredibly sharp, emanating an intimidating aura. The sword glowed with a faint light, its blade incredibly sharp, emanating an intimidating aura. Ethan lightly leaped, landing gracefully on the flying sword. Once he had stabilized himself, he turned to Peter, a smile in his eyes, and called out, What are you waiting for? Hurry up and get on. Peter's eyes immediately lit up, as if he had discovered an exquisite beauty, fixed intently on the flying sword before him. He quickly walked to the sword, his face beaming with excitement. He said eagerly, Ethan, is this the legendary flying sword? Are you going to take me flying on it? Ethan smiled and nodded, confirming, Yes, it is indeed sword flying. Peter's face was full of anticipation. He pressed on, Ethan, will I be able to stand on the sword and soar freely through the sky, just like the protagonists in fantasy novels? Ethan laughed and retorted, You wish. If that were the case, you'd fall and splat into a puddle. Hurry up and get on. Don't waste any more time. If you keep dawdling, you can take a plane yourself. Peter quickly said, No way. Ethan, flying on a plane isn't as cool as flying on a sword. You have to let me experience it. With that, he eagerly jumped onto the flying sword, wanting to feel the unprecedented thrill. However, due to his excessive excitement, he lost his footing and almost fell off. Luckily, Ethan caught him in time. Once Peter had stabilized himself, he patted his chest, still shaken, and gasped, Whoa, I almost fell off. Ethan shook his head helplessly and cautioned, Be careful, kid. Hold on tight, and don't be so reckless again. With that, Ethan chanted a spell, and the flying sword slowly ascended. At first, Peter's body was rigid, his hands clutching Ethan's clothes tightly, his eyes squeezed shut, not daring to breathe. As the sword flew higher and faster, and the wind howled past, Peter gradually adapted. He slowly opened his eyes, and the tension on his face gradually gave way to excitement. He began to shout excitedly, Wow, this is amazing! The wind roared in their ears, and the scenery below rapidly receded. Mountains, rivers, fields, and villages all looked like miniature models. Ethan controlled the flying sword, speeding through the air. Sometimes it pierced through the white, snow-like clouds, giving them a taste of the coolness and dreamlike beauty. Other times, it swooped downwards, making Peter shriek with delight. Peter's face was full of surprise and excitement, his voice trembling with emotion. Ethan, this feeling is incredible. It's even better than a roller coaster. I never thought I'd have such an amazing experience. This is way cooler than a sports car. About 10 minutes later, the two landed in a park not far from Huafu Trading. After landing, Peter said excitedly, Ethan, can you teach me how to fly on a sword? This is so much more exciting than a supercar. Ethan looked at Peter, annoyed. You can forget about it. Even after taking a marrow-cleansing pill, you haven't even reached the level of an outer-strength martial artist. You, my friend, should just stick to being the second young master of the Zhao family. Peter's face fell at this, but he quickly perked up, smiling at Ethan. Hee, Ethan, if there's a chance, you have to take me flying a few more times. But seriously, you flew so fast just now, it felt like lightning. It was incredibly exciting. Ethan smiled and patted Peter's shoulder reassuringly. Don't worry, no problem. I'll definitely take you flying again when the opportunity arises. With that, the two walked towards Huafu Trading. Along the way, Peter looked around curiously, asking, Ethan, is this your company? It looks so impressive. Ethan smiled faintly and nodded, a hint of pride in his voice. That's right. My visit to the Lin family was because of this trading company. Come on, let's go up and take a look. Saying that, he led Peter into the elevator and pressed the floor button. Soon, they arrived at the Huafu Trading office area. As they stepped out of the elevator, the young receptionist greeted them, her face beaming with a warm smile. When she saw Ethan, her expression was filled with even more admiration. She quickly said, Good day, Chairman Yi. Please come in. As the two walked into the office area, the employees stopped their work and stood up, their faces alight with bright smiles, greeting Ethan enthusiastically. Good day, Chairman Yi. Chairman Yi, you're here. Chairman Yi, you're incredible. The chorus of voices filled the entire office area, creating a lively atmosphere. However, Ethan was a bit confused by this sudden display of enthusiasm. He looked around at the employees, wondering, why are they so energetic today? Did something special happen? Despite his questions, Ethan didn't show it. He smiled and nodded at the employees, responding, Hello, everyone. Then he continued towards the CEO's office. Along the way, he noticed that the employees' gazes were all fixed on him, seemingly with a hint of respect and admiration. This feeling made him very curious. Upon reaching the CEO's office, Ethan introduced Peter. This is my brother, Wayne Wong, the CEO of Huafu Trading. Then he introduced Peter to Wayne. This is Peter Zhao, the second young master of the Zhao family from the capital, my junior brother. Wayne stood up and shook Peter's hand, saying with a smile, "So, it's Mr. Zhao. A pleasure to meet you." Peter replied with a smile, "Wayne, please, no Mr. Zhao, just call me Peter. I'm not that formal." The three sat on the sofa. Ethan asked, puzzled, "Wayne, what's gotten into the employees today? They're all so fired up." Wayne said excitedly, "Ethan, this morning, the Lin family sent representatives. Not only have they resumed their cooperation with us, but they also proactively compensated us for all previous losses. What's even more surprising is that they doubled the original order quantity. Furthermore, the Lin family personally brought Xiao Zhang downstairs and broke both his legs on the spot. Now, you've become an idol to the entire company." Hearing this news, Ethan felt a trace of surprise. He hadn't expected the Lin family to act so quickly. It seemed they were wary of his power and background, fearing retaliation. Thinking this, his lips curved slightly, revealing an almost imperceptible smile. He said to Wayne, half jokingly, "Wayne, am I the company's sales champion now?" "Ha ha ha." Wayne chuckled along. "Yes, you are indeed the company's undisputed sales champion now. Are you going to treat the whole company to a big dinner tonight?" Ethan laughed heartily and replied readily, "All right, no problem. I'm treating everyone to a big dinner tonight. You arrange the location, and as for the cost, Peter can cover it." Peter readily agreed and generously said, "Sure, I love a good party, and money is no object." But, he paused, then turned to Wayne with a smile. "Wayne, how about this? I'll have my older brother give our Zhao family's orders to your company. You can increase the unit price by 50% and then take the extra amount as my sales commission. What do you think?" He winked. Ethan listened to Peter's words, a strange look on his face. He chuckled. "You kid, you're something else. Scamming your own family's money. If your dad knew, he'd give you a good beating." However, Peter shrugged nonchalantly, replying carelessly, "Who told my old man to be so stingy? Every time I ask him for living expenses, he always makes excuses. My older brother gives me more in secret anyway. And besides, if he knew this company was yours, Ethan, he wouldn't just agree to a 50% price increase. He'd be practically begging to agree to 200%. Ethan couldn't help but be amused by Peter's words, shaking his head with a smile. Then, he turned to Wayne and said, "All right, let's do as Peter suggested. You two can discuss the specific details and pricing. As for other matters, I won't worry about them anymore. I need to go home first. Once the dinner location is confirmed for tonight, remember to notify me." With that, Ethan turned and left the office. After Ethan left, Wayne looked at Peter with a wide smile and said, "Peter, with such a big increase, will your family be okay with it?" Peter excitedly leaned closer. "Wayne, leave it to me. Our Zhao family owes Ethan a lot of favors. My dad will definitely agree." Wayne nodded, and then the two began to discuss the specific operational details. Meanwhile, Ethan returned to the villa in Harbin. He quickly walked to the door, opened it, and then, while changing his shoes, called upstairs, "Nina, I'm home." However, no sound came from the room. Ethan was a little puzzled, but didn't think much of it. He walked straight to the kitchen refrigerator, opened the door, and took out a drink, tilting his head back to take a large gulp. After finishing, he casually placed the bottle on the dining table, pulled out his phone, and prepared to call Nina to check on her. Ethan took out his phone and dialed Nina Lee's number, but just as it rang once, she opened the door and returned. Seeing Ethan, she rushed into his arms and said softly, "Ethan, you're back." Ethan gently stroked her hair, responding tenderly, "Yes, I just called you after I got home, and you walked in. Where did you go today?" Nina pulled him to sit on the sofa, smiling sweetly. "I just got back from shopping with Maya. I've been staying and eating at her place for the past few days. Since you're back, how about we invite her and Dylan to dinner tonight?" Ethan smiled and nodded in agreement, adding, "Sounds good. I'm actually treating the Harbin employees to dinner tonight anyway. I was planning to invite them both. Wayne hasn't told me the exact location yet, though." Nina's eyes lit up when she heard this. She happily took out her phone to text Maya. A short while later, Maya replied, excitedly agreeing and sending a string of happy emojis. Ethan and Nina began discussing what to prepare for dinner that evening. Nina wondered if she should bring small gifts for Maya and Dylan, while Ethan pondered whether to offer some benefits to the company employees. As they were talking, Wayne's call came through. "Ethan, the dinner place is set at the Ermin Hotel. I've sent you the location. The environment is nice, and the food is quite unique," Wayne said. Ethan responded, "All right, thanks for your hard work, Wayne. I'll head over with Dylan and the others." After hanging up, Ethan smiled at Nina. "The location's set, at the Ermin Hotel. Let's get ready to go." After they dressed up, they headed out to meet Maya and Dylan. Just outside the villa, they found Maya and Dylan already waiting. "Oh, you're finally here. I thought you two would be making out for a while longer," Maya teased, a sly smile in her eyes. Yeah, Ethan, should I introduce you to some folk remedies? I guarantee you'll be full of vigor, Dylan chimed in, a mischievous grin on his face. Hearing this, Ethan's face darkened. He glared at them, jokingly chiding. I think you two should be making out more. If you get pregnant, old mister. Moo won't have a choice but to agree. Everyone burst into laughter, the sound filled with ease and joy. Few more playful jabs. Then the group headed to the Ermine Hotel together. Arriving at the hotel entrance, Wayne and Peter immediately came to greet them. Wayne rubbed his hands, which were red from the cold, and said with a bright smile, You finally made it. If I knew you'd be this late, I wouldn't have waited for you at the door. Let's go inside. It's too cold out here. The group stepped into the hotel, and a wave of warmth enveloped them. Led by staff, they arrived at the banquet hall. The hall was already filled with people, chatting and laughing, the atmosphere lively. Seeing Ethan and the others enter, people rose to greet him. Ethan smiled and responded to each, showing friendliness and warmth. After the group settled at the innermost table, waiters began serving dishes. First came an exquisite appetizer, chilled jellyfish salad. Its translucent appearance and crisp texture whetted their appetites. Next was a fragrant braised pork, red in color, fatty but not greasy, each bite filled with rich meat flavor. Then came a refreshing stir-fried seasonal vegetables with tender shrimp, providing a fresh taste. As one delicious dish after another arrived, the table was piled high with food. Wayne saw that all the dishes had been served and smiled at Ethan. Ethan, as the boss, aren't you going to say a few words? Hearing this, Ethan smiled slightly, thinking he hadn't planned on saying anything. But since Wayne brought it up, he'd keep it brief. So he stood up, and the crowd immediately quieted down as they saw him. Ethan cleared his throat, his voice not loud but clear enough for everyone to hear. He said slowly, I'm delighted to be here with all of you today, and I thank you for your contributions to Huafu Trading. Although we haven't taken over the company long, the data shows a significant improvement in the company's performance over the past few months. He scanned the employees present and continued, I, Ethan Yi, don't like to make empty promises. I prefer tangible results. So, I announce that next year, all employees will receive a 20% salary increase, and annual bonuses will be doubled. As soon as his words fell, the entire hall erupted. Boss, you're awesome. Chairman Yi is mighty. Chairman Yi, I love you. A variety of cheers rose and fell, and the previously somewhat quiet atmosphere instantly became fervent. Ethan watched the rising and falling cheers, a sense of emotion and pride welling up inside him. He smiled, gently pressing his hands down, signaling for everyone to quiet down. Fellow colleagues, thank you for your support and trust. I know we all share a common goal, to build a successful company. Today's gathering is to celebrate the journey we've taken together and to look forward to future developments. I hope that through this gathering, everyone can relax, enjoy the food, and strengthen your understanding and friendship with each other. I also hope everyone can actively participate in various activities, showcasing your talents and abilities. Finally, I wish our company continued growth and everyone a wonderful life. Cheers. As Ethan finished speaking, a round of enthusiastic applause and cheers broke out. Everyone raised their glasses, congratulating and thanking Ethan. Ethan smiled back at everyone, then raised his glass, clinked it gently with those nearby, and drank it down. I, Ethan Yi, am not a stingy person. As long as everyone delivers good results, I can't guarantee things elsewhere, but when it comes to money, you will definitely be satisfied. All right, that's all I have to say. Now, everyone, please enjoy your meal. As Ethan's words settled, the atmosphere became relaxed and cheerful. People began to enjoy the food and chat with each other, laughter and conversation intertwining to form a joyous and harmonious ambience. Ethan sat down, his gaze slowly sweeping over everyone present, a hint of confusion in his eyes. He frowned slightly. Then, he turned to Wayne beside him and asked, Wayne, where are Chris and Chelsea? Why didn't they come tonight? Wayne smiled and explained, Chelsea is expecting a baby, so they both took leave and went back to Lu Province. Hearing this news, Ethan's face broke into a joyful smile. He nodded in understanding and exclaimed, That's fantastic news. They've been hoping for a child for so long. When Chris gets back, he definitely owes us a big celebration. Then, he raised his glass and proposed a toast to everyone. Come on, let's all raise a glass and wish Chris his heart's desire. Everyone responded, raising their glasses to celebrate the good news. However, when they put their glasses down, Peter looked a bit dejected. He looked around and saw everyone else coupled up, feeling a surge of loneliness. He sighed, Oh, look at all of you with your partners. I'm still just a single guy. Ethan noticed Peter's change in mood and looked at him, amused. What's wrong? Just a few days ago, you were telling me things were progressing rapidly with Lily. Are you getting cold feet now? Peter gave a helpless smile. Yeah, what good is rapid progress? It didn't work out in the end, did it? Ethan comforted him. Don't be discouraged. Maybe it's just a matter of time. Matters of the heart can't be rushed. As long as you're sincere with her, there will be a result eventually. Peter listened, nodding thoughtfully, but a hint of confusion still lingered in his eyes. Wayne, sitting next to him, put an arm around his shoulder. I say, Peter, haven't you heard the saying, the more you simp, the more you lose? So, chasing a girl is like flying a kite. You have to tug on the string occasionally. And also, before he could finish, Sherry Young pinched his ear, making him yelp in pain, which made everyone laugh. Sherry glared at him fiercely. Didn't you tell me I was your first relationship? Where did you get all this experience? Confess, or you're in for it. Peter watched all this unfold, sighing inwardly at the complexity and unpredictability of love. He knew his feelings for Lily were deep, but he wasn't getting an active response from her. He thought Wayne's words made sense, but worried that acting on them might displease Lily. Meanwhile, Wayne was wincing from Sherry pinching his ear. He pleaded, Sherry, please let go. All these employees are watching. Don't I have any dignity? I just heard these things from others. How could I have any experience? You're my first love. Hearing this, Sherry loosened her grip slightly, but still glared at him, warning, dare to spout nonsense like that again, and you'll see what I do to you. Peter watched their playful banter, a little envious. He wished he could have such intimate interactions with Lily, but he understood that to achieve that, he needed to put in more effort. Peter silently picked up his glass and took another sip of wine, trying to calm his turbulent emotions. Just then, his phone suddenly rang. It was a message from Lily Lynn. His heart instantly fluttered like a startled deer, and his hand trembled slightly as he opened the message. Lily had written, Peter, are you back in the capital? Peter's heart swelled with joy when he received the message. He immediately replied, No, I'm in Harbin right now. After sending it, he anxiously awaited Lily's reply, his heart filled with anticipation. Not long after, his phone chimed. Peter eagerly opened the screen and saw Lily's reply. Really? Is it fun there? I only went once as a child with my parents. I haven't been since I grew up. Seeing this message, Peter's face instantly broke into a brilliant smile. He quickly replied, Of course it's fun. There are so many exciting places here, and beautiful ice and snow scenery. You'll definitely love it. Why don't you come visit Harbin? I'll pick you up at the airport when you arrive. A moment later, Lily replied, I'll discuss it with my sister first. I'll tell you later. Peter was so excited he nearly jumped up. He replied enthusiastically, Okay, I'll wait for your news. Then he clutched his phone tightly, as if holding the entire world. Wayne looked at his lovesick expression and teased. Peter, tell us, who sent you that message? You're absolutely beaming. Peter grinned proudly. Haha, it was Lily Lynn who messaged me. It looks like my spring has come. Ethan also chuckled teasingly. Your mood changes so fast. Just now you seemed ready to give up, and now spring has come? Peter's face flushed with embarrassment. He awkwardly scratched his head. To avoid further embarrassment, he raised his glass and said grandly, I'll down this drink. My brothers and sisters-in-law, just pretend I didn't say anything. With that, he raised his glass and drank it all. Everyone roared with laughter at Peter's antics. Sherry said with a smile, Peter, this won't do. You can't just say you forgot. You have to tell us exactly what Lily said that made you so happy. Peter put down his empty glass and said with a smile, Oh, come on, sister-in-law, it's nothing much. She just might be coming to Harbin to visit me. Wayne clapped Peter on the shoulder. All right, brother, you'd better prepare well and try to win her over this time. Peter nodded, his eyes filled with anticipation. That's a must. I'm already planning how to arrange the itinerary to make her happy. Ethan raised his glass and said, Come on, let's all toast to Peter winning the heart of his beloved. Everyone raised their glasses and clinked them together. The crisp sound like the best wishes for Peter. Peter's face was beaming with happiness, and he secretly vowed to show Lily his true feelings this time. As time ticked by, the gathering gradually drew to a close. Some employees who had elderly relatives or children to look after had already left early. At this point, Ethan noticed the situation and stood up, saying to everyone, Excuse me, I need to use the restroom. You all continue. I'll be right back. With that, he smiled and walked out of the banquet hall. After leaving the banquet hall, Ethan walked directly to a waiter by the door and politely asked, Could you please take me to the checkout? The waiter quickly nodded. Certainly, sir. Please follow me. Together, they headed to the cashier. At the cashier, Ethan didn't hesitate to take out his phone and load it with 5 million yuan, successfully obtaining a diamond membership card. After paying the entire bill for the evening, he turned and returned to the banquet hall. When he stepped into the banquet hall, he found many people already slightly tipsy, but still full of enthusiasm. Under the brilliant lights, happy smiles adorned their faces, and the air was filled with joy and warmth. He smiled and said to everyone, I just learned from a waiter that this hotel also has KTV, spa facilities, a bar, and various other entertainment options. If you're not done having fun yet, how about a second round? Everyone immediately perked up and cheered. That sounds great. We haven't had enough fun in the first round. Wayne exclaimed loudly, his face, already flushed from alcohol, now even more excited, his eyes sparkling with anticipation. Sherry also chimed in excitedly. Yes, it's a perfect way to keep relaxing. Today has been so much fun, it can't end so early. Plus, at KTV, we can really sing our hearts out and release all our joy. As she spoke, she mimed singing. Peter replied with a smile. Then let's take a short break first, and then we'll head out. Everyone can use this time to sober up a bit and get ready. After all, there's more fun waiting for us. A while later, everyone was refreshed and headed to the KTV. Along the way, they chatted and laughed, reminiscing about the fun times in the banquet hall. As they entered the KTV room, a lively atmosphere once again permeated the air. Colorful lights flashed, and popular songs scrolled across the huge screen. The walls of the room were adorned with luxurious wallpaper, reflecting the changing lights, creating a dreamlike ambience. Crystal chandeliers on the ceiling cast a soft glow, complementing the wall lights. The sofas were soft and comfortable, making it feel like sinking into a gentle embrace. Someone eagerly picked a song, grabbed the microphone, and began to sing, their heartfelt voice captivating everyone present. The singer was completely immersed, their voice sometimes soaring powerfully, sometimes softly lingering, as if telling moving stories. Others danced along to the rhythm of the music, their bodies swaying, full of vitality. Their movements were fluid and natural, perfectly blended with the music, every step filled with passion and joy. Still others sat together, chatting and laughing, enjoying the happy time. They shared bits of their lives, talked about amusing work stories, their laughter rising and falling. Peter sat in a corner, watching the lively scene, but his thoughts were on sharing the evening's joy with Lily Lynn later. A smile unconsciously appeared on his face. He imagined Lily's happy expression when she heard his stories, as if he could already see her replying to his messages. Lost in thought, he was momentarily distracted until Wayne's call snapped him back to reality. Peter, stop daydreaming. Come sing with us. Wayne waved his arm, beckoning him over. Peter smiled, stood up, and joined the joyous atmosphere. He took the microphone and sang his own adapted version of Two Tigers, making everyone laugh so hard they doubled over. Peter handed the microphone to Ethan, saying with a mischievous grin, "Ethan, you were laughing the loudest just now. Now it's your turn to perform." Ethan took the microphone, a confident smile playing on his lips. Without hesitation, he replied, "All right, let me show you what real singing is like. You're about to witness the true style of a singing god." Saying that, he confidently chose Old Days Footprints, a classic song by Beyond, ready to showcase his voice. As soon as the music's intro began, Peter was astonished to see Dylan and Wayne quickly cover their ears, as if facing a mortal enemy. He found it very strange, so he forcefully pulled down Wayne's hand and asked, puzzled, "Wayne, what's going on with you? Are your ears bothering you?" Wayne wore a look of utter despair, explaining helplessly, "The last person who asked Ethan to sing now has psychological trauma. Soon, you'll know what it's like for singing to be deadly. I just hope your mental fortitude is strong enough." After saying that, he quickly covered his ears again, as if terrified of further torment. Hearing Wayne's words, Peter became even more intensely curious, like a cat being scratched. He desperately wanted to know just how much power Ethan's singing possessed. He widened his eyes, fixedly staring at Ethan, who held the microphone with a confident expression, eagerly anticipating what would happen next. Ethan was now completely immersed in the music. He took a deep breath and began to sing. The moment his voice came out, it was absolutely astounding. He was wildly off-key, by a mile. His high notes seemed to be desperately clutched by something, unable to rise, and his low notes plunged into a bottomless pit, unable to escape. The rhythm was a complete mess, like a runaway horse, utterly out of control. Peter instantly understood Dylan and Wayne's alarm. This wasn't singing. It was literally torture to the ears. He felt every single note brutally assaulting his ears and brain. He wanted to cover his ears, as the sound was truly unbearable, but he felt it would be rude, too disrespectful to Ethan. So he just endured it, his face twisted into a peculiar expression, his mouth twitching uncontrollably. Sherry, meanwhile, was laughing so hard she was doubled over, completely without grace. Tears streamed down her face, and her stomach faintly ached from the extreme laughter. When the song ended, the entire room fell into an eerie silence. Everyone seemed to still be recovering from the Junhan, shocking performance. Then, a burst of uncontrollable laughter erupted. Some were laughing so hard they couldn't stand straight, others clutched their stomachs, and some had tears in their eyes. Ethan himself awkwardly scratched his head, a flush rising to his face. "Oh dear, it seems my skill still needs some improvement." Peter chuckled and said, "Ethan, your singing is truly unique. It leaves a lasting impression. I don't think I'll ever forget it." Everyone laughed even harder at Peter's words. Nina, meanwhile, grabbed a bottle of beer and put it into Ethan's hand, saying with lingering trepidation, "Ethan, you should drink more beer. Let's just not sing anymore." Everyone laughed and joked for a while longer, playfully teasing Ethan about his astonishing performance. Laughter echoed through the room, making the atmosphere even more lively and cheerful. Afterwards, Maya picked a lively song, and everyone continued to sing and celebrate, fully releasing their inner joy and excitement, enjoying this incredibly happy time. The room was filled with singing, laughter, and cheers, everyone immersed in the relaxed and pleasant atmosphere, forgetting all their worries and fatigue. As the time approached midnight, the group finally finished their singing. Since it was quite late and everyone had been drinking, they all decided to stay at the hotel. Back in their room, Ethan looked at Nina like a whipped puppy, asking pitifully, "Nina, is my singing really that bad?" Nina looked at his serious face and burst out laughing. Then she replied, "Ethan, do you want the truth or a lie?" "The truth, of course." Well, it really wasn't good. How can I describe it? If I were to call it terrible wailing, I'd feel like I was insulting those words." Nina kept laughing as she spoke. Ethan looked at her, speechless, thinking that even if his singing wasn't great, it couldn't be that exaggerated. But seeing Nina laugh so happily, he started laughing too. "All right then, it seems I'll have to practice my singing seriously from now on," Ethan said with a helpless smile. "Ethan, darling, let's not practice anymore, okay? Singing requires talent. Even if you're not a good singer, your girlfriend is beautiful. Wouldn't you rather spend that time with me?" Nina said, batting her big eyes and pouting playfully. Ethan dotingly stroked her head and said with a smile, "All right, then I'll spend more time with my Nina." Afterward, the two washed up and lay in bed, ready to rest. Ethan gently held Nina, feeling her warmth and softness, his heart filled with happiness and contentment. "Good night, my love," Ethan whispered. "Good night, Ethan," Nina replied, a sweet smile on her face. The next morning, near noon, sunlight streamed through a gap in the curtains, illuminating two figures asleep in an embrace. Their breathing was steady, and their faces held expressions of satisfaction and happiness. Suddenly, a crisp phone ring broke the peaceful silence. The sound came from the phone by the bed, stubbornly ringing without stopping. Ethan frowned, reluctantly opening his eyes. He rubbed his face, trying to shake off the sleepiness. When he saw the caller ID on the screen, he instantly became alert. It was a call from Director Zhong. Ethan carefully climbed out of bed, trying his best not to wake Nina. He picked up his phone and tiptoed towards the bathroom, then gently closed the door. Once in the bathroom, Ethan took a deep breath and pressed the answer button on his phone. "Director Zhong, calling so early. Is there a lead on the Beastman incident?" Ethan asked, somewhat puzzled. Director Zhong shook his head, his face grave. "No leads on that yet. My call today isn't about that." Ethan's heart tightened. He frowned and asked, "Director Zhong, what else would require you to personally call me?" Director Zhong sighed, a hint of exasperation in his voice. "Morgan Mu just told me you recommended Julian Zhou to join the Ninth Bureau for assessment." Ethan was taken aback. "What's wrong with that?" he thought. Director Zhong continued. "I told you, kid. Can you stop causing me trouble? General Zhou's family has dedicated their entire lives to the country. Now he only has one younger son and his grandson Julian left. If Julian were to have an accident in our Ninth Bureau, how would we explain it to General Zhou?" Ethan felt that it was indeed a bit inappropriate, but he still explained, "Director Zhong, I know you're worried about Julian's safety, but he's also a very promising young man. If we give him a chance, there might be unexpected gains. General Zhou also supports him joining our Ninth Bureau to contribute to the country. Besides, General Zhou personally approached me about this, and I couldn't really refuse. Please, old man, help him out." Director Zhong pondered for a moment, then reluctantly said, "All right, since he's already here, let him try. However, you must take full responsibility for him and ensure he doesn't come to any harm." Ethan quickly nodded, promising to ensure Julian's safety. Afterwards, Director Zhong gave a few more instructions and then hung up. Ethan put away his phone, and as he was about to return to the room, a clear chime suddenly echoed in his mind. Ding! He was taken aback, wondering to himself, what's going on? Has the system issued a new mission? Indeed, the familiar, long-unheard voice followed immediately. "Congratulations, host. You have triggered a random mission." Ethan's eyes widened, a look of surprise and anticipation on his face. It had been a long time since his last system mission. Triggering a new random mission now was both unexpected and exciting. The system continued. "This mission requires the host to help Julian Zhou advance to an inner strength martial artist and ensure he successfully passes the Ninth Bureau assessment. Mission reward, an island measuring 20 square kilometers. The host may choose its location, and the system will automatically deploy it." Ethan's face broke into a satisfied smile upon hearing the mission description. This task was not particularly difficult for him, but the reward was incredibly enticing. A large island whose location he could choose himself. Just as he was immersed in excitement, the bathroom door slowly opened, and Nina Lee walked in wearing her pajamas. She saw Ethan standing in the bathroom and asked curiously, "Ethan, is something making you happy? I could hear you laughing from afar." Ethan snapped out of his reverie and smiled at Nina. "Nothing much, just ran into something interesting." Nina nodded, then walked over to Ethan and gently hugged his arm, saying softly, "Ethan, you're always so mysterious. But as long as you're happy." Ethan micro-smiled at Nina and said gently, "Nina, I have to go to the capital in a while. Would you like to come with me?" Nina blinked, thought for a moment, then replied, "Ethan, I think I'll stay here. You probably have important matters to attend to in the capital this time. I'll go play with Maya and Sherry instead." Ethan nodded in understanding, thinking that his trip to the capital was to help Julian Zhou improve his strength, and bringing Nina along would indeed be inconvenient. So, he returned to the room to change into clean clothes. From his pocket, he took out the hotel's diamond membership card he had obtained yesterday, handed it to Nina, and said softly, "Nina, this is the hotel's diamond membership card. I loaded 5 million yuan onto it yesterday. You can use it as you please. I need to go to the capital now. I'll come back as soon as I'm done." With that, he used the system space as a transit point and instantly reappeared at his home in the capital. Ethan didn't linger. With a spatial teleport, he appeared directly in Director Zhong's office. Director Zhong, engrossed in reviewing documents, was startled by Ethan's sudden appearance, his mouth twitching involuntarily. He put down his documents and said with a slight hint of exasperation, "Can you stop just appearing in my office like that? You're giving me a nervous breakdown." Ethan shrugged, saying helplessly, "Director Zhong, you can't blame me for this. Why don't you assign me my own office? I'm still a chief inspector. I can't just not have a place to work, can I? If I had my own office, I certainly wouldn't disturb you." Director Zhong's face darkened with a few lines as he retorted, "Who said you don't have an office? It's the third door on your left, and there's even a chief inspector's office sign on the door." Ethan awkwardly scratched his head, smiling. "Oh, Director Zhong, how careless of me. I didn't even notice. Well then, I'll go check out my office right now." With that, Ethan turned to leave. "Wait," Director Zhong called out. "Don't think I don't know you, kid. You never come without a reason. Tell me, what is it this time?" Ethan turned around and walked to Director Zhong's desk, a helpless expression on his face. He gently tapped the table and said with a wry smile, "Director Zhong, didn't you ask me to take responsibility for Julian Zhou? I'm here this time to help him improve his strength, so he doesn't encounter danger during missions. If something were to happen to him, you'd devour me, wouldn't you?" Director Zhong's eyes lit up with surprise. He quickly stood up, rubbing his hands together with a wide smile, and said sincerely to Ethan, "Ethan, since that's the case, why not arrange for a few more people to improve their strength with him? After all, it's the same effort to herd one sheep or a flock of sheep. Afterwards, I'll ask my wife to prepare some delicious dishes and invite you to our home for dinner as a thank you. How about that?" Ethan looked at Director Zhong's ingratiating manner, secretly amused, but outwardly pretended to be helpless, shaking his head and sighing. "Oh, all right. Who told us to be good friends? But the number of people shouldn't be too many, and you must pick those with talent and potential, otherwise, my pills would be wasted." He couldn't help but add, "Also, remember to tell them to keep it strictly confidential." Director Zhong nodded repeatedly. Of course. You can trust me to handle it." Ethan nodded and continued, "All right then, Director Zhong. First finalize the personnel list for me, and I'll make the specific arrangements." "No problem, I'll get right on it," Director Zhong responded, then left the office in a hurry. After a while, Director Zhong returned to Ethan with a list. "Ethan, I've compiled the list. Take a look," Director Zhong said, handing the list to Ethan. Ethan took the list and read it carefully. After finishing, he placed the list on the table and said, "All right, Director Zhong, let's go with this list. Have them assemble at my training ground immediately." "Got it," Director Zhong replied excitedly. Not long after, the selected personnel all arrived at the assembly point on time. Ethan narrowed his eyes, slowly sweeping his divine sense over everyone present. A satisfied smile gradually appeared on his face, as he realized that these individuals indeed possessed quite good talent. Then, he gently reached out his hand and exchanged 10 pills, emanating a peculiar glow from his system space. He carefully placed these pills on the table before him, his expression becoming especially serious. "These are marrow-cleansing pills. They can help you expel impurities from your bodies and broaden your meridians, thereby greatly enhancing your potential. However, this process may bring some pain and discomfort, but I believe with your perseverance, you will be able to endure it." Ethan's voice carried a tone of firmness and encouragement. Finally, he waved his hand, signaling everyone to come forward, receive the pills, and begin taking them. Everyone looked at the pills on the table with tension and anticipation, their eyes gleaming with a longing and vision for the future. They knew that this moment might be the key to changing their destinies. Seeing everyone take the pills, Director Zhong watched them intently, his expression tense, his heart filled with worry and anxiety. He turned to Ethan, asking nervously, "Ethan, there won't be any problems, will there? These are all promising individuals I carefully selected." Ethan smiled faintly, reassuring him, "Director Zhong, don't worry. Although they look pained right now, but once the impurities are expelled from their bodies, they are very likely to advance a minor realm." Additionally, I've specially prepared another pill, which can help them advance a major realm. Director Zhong's eyes immediately lit up. He eagerly asked, "Really? That's fantastic. But can this pill only be used by people below the Master Realm?" Ethan rolled his eyes, saying helplessly, "Anyone below the Golden Core realm can take it. However, I still need to warn you. Do not attempt to mass-produce Master or Grandmaster level experts this way, or it could bring unforeseen disaster to all of China." Hearing the warning, Director Zhong immediately understood. Indeed, if China possessed the means to mass-produce masters and even grandmasters, it would undoubtedly draw the suspicion and covetousness of nations worldwide, potentially even sparking a global war. No country would willingly watch an overwhelmingly powerful adversary emerge. Sigh. Although there are quite a few Golden Core experts in China, they are all bound by their sects or families, making it difficult for the state to mobilize them. Director Zhong shook his head helplessly, his heart filled with worry. Ethan nodded, indicating understanding. He knew that these Golden Core experts were often core figures in their sects or families, more concerned with their own interests and legacies than the overall national interest. This left the state feeling powerless when facing major issues. Ethan looked at Director Zhong and suddenly asked, "Director Zhong, from what I know, you have already reached the peak of the Grand Master realm. Why haven't you considered breaking through to the Golden Core realm?" Director Zhong sighed, his expression somewhat grave as he replied, "I want to wait a bit longer. After all, to break through to the Golden Core realm, one must face the trial of heavenly tribulation. I haven't fully prepared myself to meet it yet, and, although I intend for Morgan Mu to take my place, he still needs more tempering and growth." Director Zhong's eyes revealed both worry and hope for the future. He understood that his responsibility was not just personal cultivation, but also to train the next generation of successors, ensuring national security and stability. However, facing numerous difficulties and challenges, he couldn't help but feel immense pressure. Ethan took an intermediate defense talisman from his system space, then handed it to Director Zhong, saying, "Director Zhong, this intermediate defense talisman is quite sufficient to withstand the heavenly tribulation of the Golden Core realm. Please accept it." Director Zhong didn't stand on ceremony and accepted it directly. "This talisman is indeed very important to me. I won't be formal with you then." Ethan was slightly taken aback, then smiled and said, "Director Zhong, you could at least be a little more polite with me, couldn't you? At the very least, you should have your wife add 2 more dishes for me tonight." Director Zhong put the talisman into his storage pouch and said proudly, "Why be polite with you? Let's go outside first. The smell in here is quite intense. We'll come back a bit later." The two walked out of the foul-smelling training ground, deeply inhaled the fresh air outside, both showing expressions of relief. Director Zhong smiled and patted Ethan's shoulder. "Come on, I'll take you to see your office, so you won't always have to suddenly appear in mine." With that, he led Ethan towards the chief inspector's office. Pushing open the office door, Ethan stepped inside and looked around, finding the entire office empty, not a soul in sight. He couldn't help but feel a little confused. He turned to Director Zhong and asked, puzzled, "Director Zhong, am I the only person in the inspection department? How come there's no one else here?" Director Zhong smiled faintly and patiently explained, "The personnel of the inspection department are basically dispersed across China, carrying out their inspection duties. There was originally a secretary responsible for daily affairs here, but since you are often not in the office, I reassigned her to Morgan Mu, letting Morgan Mu handle the problems reported from various places on your behalf." Ethan nodded thoughtfully, indicating understanding. Then, he remembered something else and asked, "Oh, by the way, shouldn't there also be a deputy chief inspector? Morgan Mu is already very busy with intelligence work. Wouldn't it be too much of a burden for him to handle my inspection duties as well?" Director Zhong gently shook his head, reassuring him, "Don't worry, Morgan Mu can handle it. He has always been a very reliable person, with rich experience and capability in these matters. I believe he can manage all tasks properly." Director Zhong smiled and patted Ethan's shoulder, reassuring him, "Don't worry, Morgan Mu is very capable. These things are nothing to him, and he also enjoys challenging himself. As for the deputy chief inspector..." At this point, Director Zhong paused, seeming a bit hesitant. Seeing this, Ethan asked curiously, "What's wrong? Is there something you can't say?" Director Zhong sighed, saying helplessly, "Actually, the original deputy chief inspector was transferred due to some reasons, so the position is currently vacant." Ethan frowned, puzzled. Why would that happen? Director Zhong shook his head and gave a wry smile. "It involves some complex interpersonal relationships and power struggles. I won't go into the details. However, you don't need to worry. No one in China would dare to trip you up." Ethan nodded, indicating understanding. Although he was somewhat surprised by this outcome, he didn't want to get too involved in such complex bureaucratic struggles. After all, his purpose for being here was solely to protect national security, not to get entangled in meaningless disputes. Ethan pondered for a while, then slowly spoke. "Director Zhong, I actually have someone I can recommend to you for the position of Deputy Chief Inspector. What do you think? Director Zhong's face immediately lit up with joy and a flicker of anticipation in his eyes. He eagerly asked, "Oh, who is it? Is it Brock Bailey? I've always wanted to bring him into our 9th Bureau. If it's him, that would be wonderful. He's a golden core body cultivator." Ethan smiled faintly and nodded. "That's right, it's Brock Bailey. However, he might be like me and not regularly present at the 9th Bureau." Director Zhong responded excitedly. "That's not a problem. As long as he can help resolve major issues when they arise, that's all that matters. By the way, where is he now? He should be on Sakhalin Island right now. I assigned him to investigate Russia's Rakshasa organization, but I haven't received any news from him yet," Ethan said, frowning slightly. He continued, "All right, let's go check on your 10 precious trainees. They should have completed their marrow cleansing by now." With that, he stood up and went with Director Zhong to the training ground. The two arrived at the training ground. The people there had already cleansed the impurities from their bodies and were standing in neat rows. Ethan's divine sense swept over everyone, and he found that they had all advanced a minor realm, more or less. He was quite satisfied with this. He then exchanged 10 advancement pills from the system shop, gave one to each person, and said, "You should stabilize your realm before taking this pill. It can help you advance a major realm. All right, Julie and Zhou, stay behind. Everyone else can return." After the others left, Ethan looked at Julie and Zhou and said seriously, "Julian, with your current strength, you can certainly pass the assessment. But have you noticed that among all 10 of you, your potential and strength are only mid to low? I'm not saying this to discourage you, but I want you to recognize your current situation. This means that if you are still determined to join the 9th Bureau, you will need to put in far more effort than others." Julian lowered his head, a flicker of determination in his eyes. "Ethan, I know, but I really want to join the 9th Bureau. I will work hard, please believe me." Ethan patted his shoulder, smiling encouragingly. I believe you have that determination and perseverance, but joining the 9th Bureau is not an easy task. In the coming days, you might have to endure a lot of hardship." Julian looked up, his eyes firm as he replied, "Don't worry. As long as I can join the 9th Bureau, I'm not afraid of any hardship or exhaustion." Ethan nodded, satisfied. "Very good. I look forward to you passing the assessment and becoming an excellent member of the 9th Bureau." Director Zhong, who was nearby, patted Julian's shoulder and comforted him. "Julian, don't be discouraged. You're actually already very outstanding. After all, this is the 9th Bureau, filled with the nation's top talents. With continued effort, you'll definitely become a core member of the 9th Bureau. By the way, since it's your first day here, why don't you have dinner at Uncle Zhong's place tonight? Your Aunt Jing would be overjoyed to know you're in the capital." Hearing this, Julian Zhou felt a warmth in his heart, but still shook his head, refusing. "Uncle Zhong, thank you for your kind offer, but I want to focus on my cultivation. When I was in the military, I always got first place. But now that I'm here, I realize there's still a huge gap between me and others. So, please apologize to Aunt Jing for me. I'll visit after I've successfully passed the assessment." With that, he turned and left, ready to continue his cultivation. Watching Julian leave, Ethan was filled with curiosity. He couldn't help but ask Director Zhong, "Director Zhong, did you used to serve under General Zhou?" Director Zhong smiled and shook his head, explaining, "Not exactly. My father-in-law actually fought alongside General Zhou, and they shared a deep camaraderie from their time in the military. Because of this, our two families have always maintained a close relationship, and General Zhou treats my wife like his own daughter." Hearing this, Ethan was surprised. He had never imagined the two families had such a special connection. He then glanced at his watch and said with a smile, "Director Zhong, it's getting late. How about I enjoy your wife's cooking another day?" Director Zhong smiled slightly, a glint in his eye, and teased, "Hey, you're trying to dictate terms to me now. But my work isn't too busy today, so let's go straight to my place now. To be honest, it's been a long time since I've left work on time." With that, the two left the training ground together. Arriving downstairs, Ethan looked at Director Zhong, a hint of confusion in his eyes. He asked, "Director Zhong, you're a respected Major General Director. Are you planning to take me home on an e-bike? That hardly seems befitting your status." Director Zhong was momentarily stunned, then slapped his forehead, as if suddenly remembering something. He said with a realization, "Oh dear, I almost forgot. E-bikes can't carry passengers. How about this? You can take a taxi and follow me." Ethan's face darkened with a few lines as he looked at Director Zhong helplessly. He sighed softly, shaking his head. "Forget it, you go ahead. I'll just teleport over later. It'll be more convenient." Director Zhong nodded. He cautioned, "All right, I'll head off first. But remember, be careful when you teleport. Make sure no ordinary people see you." With that, he hopped on his e-bike and sped away. Watching Director Zhong's retreating back, Ethan couldn't help but chuckle. This Director Zhong was quite amusing. Director Zhong's home wasn't far from the 9th Bureau. When he arrived at his doorstep, Ethan teleported behind him. Director Zhong heard the movement behind him, turned around, and saw Ethan standing there with a grin. "You kid, you're fast," Director Zhong said with a laugh. Ethan shrugged. "Naturally, I have at least that much skill." The two entered the house together. The house wasn't large, but everything was neatly arranged, looking very tidy. Just as Ethan was curiously observing the room's layout, a graceful and beautiful middle-aged woman in an apron emerged from the kitchen. Her name was Zhong Lijing. Her face was adorned with a warm smile, making her appear exceptionally kind. Seeing Ethan, she said warmly, "You must be Ethan. Old Zhong always talks about you when he's home. Today, I'm finally meeting you in person. Come, please sit down. Dinner is ready." Director Zhong smiled and introduced Ethan. "Ethan, this is my wife, Zhong Lijing." Ethan heard the name and felt a bit strange. He looked at Director Zhong and Zhong Lijing with a puzzled expression. Zhong Lijing seemed to read Ethan's thoughts. She smiled slightly and explained, "Ethan, I think you might be mistaken. Old Zhong's surname is Zhong, while my surname is Zhongli. It's not what you think." Ethan suddenly understood and quickly said, "My apologies, ma'am. I just misunderstood." Zhong Lijing smiled gently, indicating she didn't mind. She turned and went back into the kitchen, bringing out several plates of fragrant dishes and placing them on the dining table. Director Zhong enthusiastically invited Ethan to sit down. Zhong Lijing took a bottle of wine from the cabinet, gently placed it in front of the two, and carefully reminded, "Old Zhong, you can have a few drinks with Ethan, but be mindful of the amount." Director Zhong's face broke into a happy smile. He responded gratefully, "All right, thank you, my dear wife." Then, he carefully picked up the wine bottle and poured a glass for Ethan and himself. Ethan watched Director Zhong with a slightly amused expression. He genuinely hadn't expected Director Zhong to be so submissive to his wife. Immediately after, he exchanged a youth rejuvenation pill from the system shop, intending to give it to Zhong Lijing, as almost no woman could resist the temptation of eternal youth. He then placed the exquisite jade bottle containing the pill on the table and said with a smile, "Ma'am, this is my first visit, and I truly didn't know what you might like. This is a small token of my appreciation, and I hope you won't mind." Director Zhong saw the jade bottle on the table and said with a smile, "Ethan, you've given the wrong gift. My wife isn't a cultivator. Pills aren't very useful to her. If you have any spiritual tea, give her 2 boxes. She really loves tea." Ethan took out 2 more boxes of spiritual tea and placed them on the table, saying with a smile, "Director Zhong, didn't I give you quite a bit of spiritual tea? Didn't you give any to your wife?" Director Zhong cautiously glanced at Zhong Lijing, then explained, "Most of that spiritual tea went to the academicians and elders at the academy. I only had 1 box left in the 9th bureau, and even then, Morgan Moo snatched half of it. Well then, I'll put some spiritual tea in my office when I have time. You can go and take some whenever you want to drink it," Ethan said, reaching for the jade bottle on the table, a smile on his face. Director Zhong looked at the jade bottle in Ethan's hand, wondering what was inside. He asked curiously, "What's in there?" Ethan gave a sly smile and replied, "This is good stuff. This youth rejuvenation pill can keep a person perpetually youthful. I originally intended to give it to your wife, but you just said I gave the wrong gift, so I had no choice but to take it back." Director Zhong's eyes immediately widened. He snatched the jade bottle from Ethan's hand and placed it in front of Zhong Lijing. He said excitedly, "Oh, how can you be like that? You can't take back something you've given. By the way, does this pill have any side effects?" Ethan smiled faintly and explained, "Side effects? Well, not exactly. It just means she'll stay exactly as she is now and won't age anymore." Zhong Lijing's face immediately lit up with a joyful smile. She happily took the pill, exclaiming excitedly, "That's not a side effect at all. That's every woman's dream. Ethan, thank you so much." Just then, a girl of about 20, with a single ponytail, pushed open the door and entered. Her long, flowing hair swayed gently with her steps, exuding a fresh and natural aura. Her eyes were bright and clear, shining like stars. Her skin was as fair as snow, revealing health and vitality. The girl looked at Ethan at the dinner table, her eyes showing a hint of confusion, but it was quickly replaced by politeness. She asked softly, "Dad, Mom, who is this?" Zhong Lijing smiled and rose, introducing her daughter. "This is your dad's colleague. You can call him Uncle Yi." Then, she turned to Ethan, introducing, "This is my and old Zhong's daughter, Zhong Jiechi." Zhong Jiechi nodded obediently, a sweet smile on her face. Her voice was clear and melodious, like the singing of an oriole. "Hello, Uncle Yi. I'm Zhong Jiechi." Ethan smiled back. "Hello, Jiechi. I'm not much older than you. You can just call me Brother Ethan from now on. Otherwise, you'll make me sound old." Zhong Jiechi blinked, a flicker of surprise in her eyes, then nodded obediently. "All right, Brother Ethan." Next, she walked to the dining table and sat down, her lips curving slightly as she smiled at Ethan. "Brother Ethan, my dad rarely brings people home, so it seems he values you highly." Director Zhong chuckled, teasing, "Ethan, your little niece is home today. Aren't you going to give her a welcome gift?" Ethan looked at Zhong Jiechi, a slight smile on his lips, a twinkle in his eye. He turned to Director Zhong and said in a relaxed tone, Director Zhong, I don't think my sister here is a cultivator. If you don't have other plans, after she graduates, she can pick any position she wants at Universe Group. Zhong Lijing smiled faintly and said to Ethan, Ethan, Jiechi is studying bioengineering. It doesn't quite fit with your Universe Group. Hearing this, Ethan frowned slightly, a hint of confusion. He indeed wasn't very familiar with the field of bioengineering, but he didn't dwell on it. With enough capital and resources, anything could be solved. So, he smiled at Zhong Lijing and said, Ma'am, that's no problem. Bioengineering is a major future trend. If Jiechi wants to pursue related work, that's fine. I can just start a specialized company. It won't cost much anyway. Hearing Ethan say this, Zhong Jiechi's eyes lit up. Her mentor had recently been struggling with funding. Although some companies from Hong Kong and Russia wanted to invest, their demands were quite strict. If they could get a big financier like Ethan to invest, that would definitely be the best outcome. Brother Ethan, how about you invest in my mentor's research project? We're currently researching gene recombination technology. If successful, it could greatly enhance human longevity and fundamentally solve many genetic diseases, even achieving a certain degree of immortality, Zhong Jiechi said, full of hope. However, Ethan didn't immediately agree, but looked at Director Zhong, who also looked surprised. He then spoke, Jiechi, I think your research is more than just that. Tell me honestly, are you also researching some forbidden things? Zhong Jiechi immediately became nervous from Ethan's question, her eyes flickering. She stammered, Brother, Ethan, please don't stare at me like that. I'm a little scared. She inwardly cursed herself, not expecting Ethan to detect the secrets in their research. At this moment, Director Zhong's expression also turned grave. He didn't know what forbidden things his daughter was researching, but he also linked it to the beast man that had appeared at the border. Jiechi, what exactly are you researching? If you don't tell me, I'll investigate it myself. Director Zhong said, his face grim. Zhong Jiechi felt a pang of regret, thinking she had spoken too much just now. Although their research project was groundbreaking, it definitely couldn't be accepted by the public at this stage. So, she tried to remain calm and replied with feigned ease. We're just researching ordinary genetic technology. It doesn't involve any other sensitive or illegal areas. However, Ethan keenly noticed the panic and unnaturalness on Zhong Jiechi's face. He knew there must be a problem, so he turned to Director Zhong and said meaningfully, Director Zhong, I have some matters to attend to at home. I'll take my leave now. With that, he turned and left. Director Zhong nodded, but remained seated and did not rise to see him off. Zhong Lijing, with a forced smile, saw Ethan out of the house, then hurried back inside. As soon as she entered, she heard her father, Director Zhong, ask in a cold voice, Jiechi, I'm asking you one more time, what exactly are you researching? And have you accepted funding from overseas? Zhong Jiechi looked at her father's cold eyes, fear surging in her heart. She knew she could no longer hide it. Tears streamed down her cheeks, and she said with a sob, Dad, please don't be like this. I'm scared. We did research some forbidden topics, and as for the source of funding, I truly don't know. Zhong Lijing looked at her daughter with distress and said softly, Old Zhong, Ethan didn't say anything directly just now, but you should understand his meaning. Do you really have to get to the bottom of this? She's our only daughter. Director Zhong was silent for a long time, a flicker of pain and struggle in his eyes. Finally, he slowly said, Xiaojing, I can listen to you on other matters, but I am first and foremost a soldier, and then a husband and father. This matter is of great importance. If we cannot uncover the truth, it will pose a huge threat to the country. I'm sorry. With that, he resolutely picked up the phone and dialed Morgan Mu's number. The call connected quickly. Director Zhong said in a serious tone, Morgan Mu, immediately arranged for people to bring Professor Pan Rinli of Tsinghua University and all his students involved in his research project to the Bureau for interrogation. Also, Zhong Jiechi will be brought back to the Bureau by me personally. After hanging up, Director Zhong looked at Zhong Jiechi, his eyes filled with complex emotions. He took a deep breath and slowly said, Jiechi, come with Dad to the Bureau. I hope you will cooperate with the investigation and not make things difficult for your father. Zhong Jiechi nodded, tears blurring her vision. She silently followed her father out of the house. Director Zhong took Zhong Jiechi in a taxi directly to the 9th Bureau. Father and daughter remained silent throughout the journey. The atmosphere in the car was so oppressive it was almost suffocating. Director Zhong frowned, his gaze fixed steadfastly ahead, while Zhong Jiechi kept her head down, continuously sobbing, her tears soaking her clothes. Upon arriving at the bureau, Zhong Jiechi was led to an interrogation room. The lights in the room were dim, and the cold tables and chairs sent shivers down her spine. Director Zhong watched from the monitoring room, a mix of emotions churning within him. His eyes revealed both a father's heartache and helplessness, and a soldier's resolve and responsibility. Meanwhile, Morgan Mu and his team quickly arrived at Tsinghua University and headed straight for the bioresearch laboratory. Seeing the 9th Bureau personnel arrive, Professor Pan Rinley's face instantly turned ashen, but he still tried to maintain his composure. His students, however, looked bewildered and terrified. Professor Pan Rinley, please come with us, Morgan Mu said seriously. Pan Rinley said agitatedly. Who are you? By what right do you take me? I am a professor at Tsinghua University. Morgan Mu ignored him and simply waved his hand, ordering his subordinates to take control of him. As Professor Pan Rinley was led away from the laboratory, his students were subsequently taken away one by one. The sirens of police cars echoed through the campus, drawing glances and whispers from many teachers and students. Back at the bureau, the interrogation began intensely and methodically. Professor Pan Rinley initially attempted to argue, claiming there was nothing improper about his research. Everything I did was for academic advancement. This is innovation. What do you people understand? Pan Rinley's voice trembled slightly, but under the Ninth Bureau's powerful psychological pressure, his mental defenses gradually crumbled. I was just momentarily confused, wanting to achieve a breakthrough academically, that's why. Pan Rinley lowered his head, his forehead covered in sweat. As the investigation deepened, the truth of the entire incident gradually came to light. It turned out that Professor Pan Rinley, in pursuit of so-called academic breakthroughs, had accepted funding from an illegal overseas organization to conduct forbidden research. Zhang Jiechi and other students were unknowingly drawn into it, and later, when they realized something was wrong, they chose to conceal it due to the groundbreaking nature of the research. Director Zhang read the investigation report in his hand and let out a long sigh. He knew that this time, he had upheld his duty, but he might also have thrown his family into crisis. Yet, he had no regrets. After a while, Director Zhang took out his phone and sent the investigation results to Ethan. Ethan had already returned to Harbin. He sat on the living room sofa, quietly reading the investigation report on his phone, a grim expression on his face as he fell into deep thought. Just then, Nina Lee brought him a steaming cup of tea, gently placed it on the coffee table, and said softly to Ethan, "Ethan, have some tea." Ethan snapped out of his thoughts, put down his phone, picked up the teacup, and took a small sip, feeling the aroma of the tea spread in his mouth. Then he looked up at Nina and said softly, "Nina, thank you." Nina smiled faintly, shook her head, and indicated there was no need for thanks. Ethan took a deep breath, his voice firm. "Nina, I have to go out again tomorrow morning. I might not be able to spend time with you." Nina's eyes showed a flicker of disappointment at Ethan's words, but she quickly recovered her smile. She walked to Ethan's side, gently held his hand, and said softly, "Ethan, if you're busy, then go. I'm already happy that you've spent so much time with me, and I also want to go home and visit my parents." Ethan felt a surge of guilt. He gently stroked Nina's cheek and said affectionately, "Nina, I'm sorry to make you feel bad. After this matter is over, I will definitely make it up to you." Nina shook her head, leaned into Ethan's arms, and said softly, "Ethan, I don't blame you. I know you have your own things to do. It's enough for me that you care." Ethan hugged Nina tightly, feeling her warmth and love, his heart filled with emotion and happiness. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the window onto the bed. Ethan slowly opened his eyes, looking at his sleeping beloved beside him, a gentle smile unconsciously appearing on his lips. He gently kissed her forehead, then carefully pulled back the covers, careful not to wake her, and quietly left the room. Half an hour later, Ethan appeared in a bustling cafe on Russia's Sakhalin Island. People came and went, making it quite lively. Across from him sat Brock Bailey. Ethan picked up a steaming cup of coffee, took a small sip, feeling the bitter yet aromatic taste spread in his mouth. He put down the cup, his gaze focused on Brock Bailey, and asked, "Brock, have you found any clues about the Rakshasa organization these past few days?" Brock Bailey frowned slightly, shook his head, and said in a heavy tone, "Not yet. I've thoroughly searched all possible places where Rakshasa might be hiding, but they seem to be extremely well concealed, leaving no trace whatsoever." Ethan's face became grave, his brow furrowed, and his fingers gently tapped the table, making a crisp sound. His eyes revealed deep worry, as if he was trying hard to find a solution to the problem. After a while, he slowly looked up, his gaze firm and sharp, as if he had found some answers. He took a deep breath and then said seriously, "Brock, I encountered an artificial beast man at the Chinese border a while ago, which greatly shocked me. What's even more worrying is that just yesterday, a professor of genetic engineering from Tsinghua University confessed that he handed over some research results to Russian investors to obtain funding. After investigation, the Russian funds originated from Sakhalin Island. This series of events makes me suspect that the Rakshasa organization might have some inevitable connection to these matters." Brock Bailey listened, then crossed his arms, his expression serious as he responded, "It seems we need to find them quickly. Otherwise, the consequences will be severe." Ethan nodded slightly, then added, "Exactly. We need to expand our search range and not just limit ourselves to conventional locations. The Rakshasa organization operates mysteriously. They might be hidden in all sorts of unexpected places. We need to meticulously search every corner and not miss any clue. Brock Bailey took a sip of coffee, pondered for a moment, then suddenly had an idea and suggested, should we have Petrov use his influence to search openly while we remain hidden? Perhaps that way, we can make the Rakshasa organization expose themselves. Ethan's eyes lit up. He thought this approach indeed had potential. After all, they currently didn't have many clues. Thinking this, Ethan nodded slightly, agreeing with Brock Bailey's suggestion. He said, that's a good idea. Please contact Petrov and tell him about our plan. Next, Ethan stood up, ready to leave the cafe. As he walked, he told Brock Bailey, I'll go look around the area and see if I can find any useful clues. If there's any new development, notify me immediately. With that, he strode out of the cafe, his figure gradually disappearing into the bustling crowd. Brock Bailey watched Ethan's retreating back, took a deep breath, and then took out his phone to contact Petrov. When the call connected, he briefly explained the situation and the plan to Petrov, who readily agreed on the other end of the line. Meanwhile, Ethan was carefully observing the people and events on the street. His gaze was sharp, not missing any suspicious details. As he reached a street corner, a small boy walked up to him and said nervously, Big brother, can you give me some money? I'm so hungry. Ethan looked at the pitiful child before him, his heart softening. He crouched down and said with a smile, Little one, why are you here alone? Where are your parents? The boy looked up, tears glistening in his eyes. He mumbled, I've never seen my dad. My mom has been sleeping all day, and no matter how much I call her, she doesn't respond. Ethan frowned, realizing the situation might not be right. He lightly asked, Do you know why your mom is like this? The boy shook his head, tears streaming down his cheeks. I don't know. I'm scared. Ethan gently stroked the boy's hair, comforting him. Don't be afraid, little brother. I'll take you to get something to eat now, and then you can take me home to see your mom. She might be sick. The boy nodded obediently. Ethan took his hand, and they walked to a nearby supermarket. They bought some bread, milk, and fruit, then followed the boy back to his home. Ethan gently pushed open the door and entered the room. A pungent smell filled the air. He saw a frail woman lying on the bed, her face ashen. He quickly went to her, feeling her forehead with his hand, and found she had a high fever. Ethan immediately placed the food he bought on the table and said to the boy, Little brother, you eat something first. I'll treat your mom. The boy obediently picked up a piece of bread and began to eat slowly. Ethan then quickly exchanged a pill from the system shop and gave it to the woman. He also brought a basin of warm water, soaked a towel, and gently placed it on her forehead. He called to the woman softly, trying to wake her. After a while, the woman slowly opened her eyes, her gaze hazy and weak. Don't worry, big sister, I'll help you. Ethan comforted her. The woman weakly forced a grateful smile, wanting to say something, but was too weak to speak. Ethan carefully tucked her in again. Then, he began to clean the room, tidying up the messy items, bringing some order and warmth to this humble home. An hour later, the woman's fever gradually subsided, and she felt a little better. Thank you, kind sir, the woman said in a hoarse voice. Ethan smiled and replied, You're welcome, big sister. Rest well, you'll get better. The little boy, seeing his mom awake, happily ran over, his face beaming with joy, and called out clearly, Mommy, you're finally awake. You scared Ivan so much. Today, Big Brother helped us. He bought Ivan lots of delicious food and even cured Mommy's sickness. The boy's eyes sparkled like bright stars, a genuine happiness radiating from within. The woman smiled faintly, gently stroking the boy's cheek, her eyes filled with affection. She said softly, Mommy's little treasure, I'm sorry, I made you worry. The woman turned to Ethan, her eyes filled with gratitude. She said sincerely, Benefactor, my name is Anna. Thank you so much for saving my life. Without your help, my son and I might have. Here, her eyes welled up, tears welling in her eyes, and her voice became choked. Ethan quickly waved his hand, smiling and comforting her. Anna, there's no need to be so polite. It was just a small favor. I'm relieved to see you and your son safe and sound. By the way, my name is Ethan Yi. You can just call me by my name. Calling me Benefactor feels a bit awkward. Ethan's face was filled with a warm and friendly smile, trying to help Anna relax and not feel too burdened. Ivan blinked, curiously looking at Ethan. Suddenly, he clapped his hands and said excitedly, Ethan Yi? Big brother, I think I've heard that name somewhere, but I can't remember where right now. He tilted his little head, trying to recall, looking both adorable and serious. Anna sat up, wanting to express more gratitude. She said, Mr. Yi, no matter what, we will always remember this kindness. It's just that with me falling ill, there's no money left at home. When I feel better, I'll find a way to repay you. Her eyes were firm and sincere. Although the hardships of life made her look very tired and weak, but her heart was still full of integrity and kindness. Ethan quickly said, Anna, please don't say that. There's no need for repayment. I just did what I thought was right. The most important thing for you now is to recover and get well, so Ivan can worry less. He looked at Anna and Ivan, his gaze filled with concern. Ivan puffed out his chest like a little adult, proudly saying, "I'll take care of Mommy." His childish voice was filled with determination and courage. Just then, a breeze blew in through the window, dispelling the stuffiness in the room. The curtains fluttered gently, bringing a hint of fresh air. Ethan looked out the window and said, "Anna, you focus on getting well. Here's some money. Please take it to get through this difficult time. I'll come see you again tomorrow." With that, he gently turned and left, afraid his footsteps might disturb the mother and son who were just beginning to recover from their ordeal. After Ethan left, he wandered the streets for a while longer, then casually found a decent-looking hotel, intending to sort out his accommodation. To avoid unnecessary trouble and drawing attention, he chose a standard room. After getting his room card, he went straight to his room. Entering, he surveyed the simple environment, then walked to the window and gently pulled back the curtains. Through the window, he could see the bustling street below, with people coming and going. Just then, the system notification sound suddenly echoed in his mind. Ding! Congratulations, host, you have completed the mission. Help Julian Zhou improve his strength. Due to the special nature of the reward, please select the island deployment location and contact this system promptly. Hearing this sound, Ethan's lips curved into a satisfied smile. This meant that Julian Zhou had successfully advanced to an inner strength martial artist and passed the 9th Bureau's assessment. Ethan picked up his phone, found Morgan Moo's number, and dialed it. Soon, the phone rang, and after a few rings, the call was answered. "Hello, Ethan, what made you think of calling me? Did you run into something else you need my help with?" Morgan Moo asked with a laugh. Ethan smiled faintly and replied, "It's nothing major. I just wanted to ask about Julian Zhou. Which squad was he assigned to after passing the assessment?" Morgan Moo paused for a moment, then slowly said, After much deliberation, we decided not to assign him to any squad or regional branch for now. Instead, he'll remain at headquarters to assist me with some important intelligence matters. This way, we can better utilize his abilities and allow him to gain more experience." Ethan nodded, indicating understanding. He knew this decision wasn't made lightly, but was the result of careful consideration. "Okay, I understand. Thank you for telling me the news," Ethan said. Ethan felt cheerful. He believed this arrangement was very suitable for Julian Zhou. After all, General Zhou only had this one beloved grandson. If Julian were to have an accident during a mission, even if General Zhou wouldn't blame anyone, Ethan would certainly feel guilty. Therefore, keeping him at headquarters was the safest choice. Ethan then continued to ask, "What's the situation with Zhong Jiechi now? Was she implicated by her mentor?" Morgan Moo laughed, a sly gleam in his eyes. He deliberately teased, "I thought you wouldn't ask about that. But don't worry, Zhong Jiechi wasn't heavily involved in the research, and she wasn't aware that the funding came from overseas. So, she just received a warning, and then Director Zhong took her home." Hearing this, Ethan's heart finally dropped. He let out a sigh of relief, a relieved smile appearing on his face. However, Morgan Moo's next words made him frown. Morgan Moo paused, seemingly choosing his words carefully. It's just that the relationship between father and daughter became a bit strained because of this incident. Director Zhong felt his daughter was too reckless, while Zhong Jiechi felt wronged. They had a big argument, which caused some friction between them. Ethan smiled and said, "It's good that everything's okay. Otherwise, I wouldn't know how to face Director Zhong. All right, that's all for now. You go back to your work." With that, he hung up the phone. After hanging up, Ethan leaned back in his chair and gently rubbed his temples. He thought that the matters concerning Julian Zhou and Zhong Jiechi had been temporarily resolved, but resolving the subsequent strained relationships would probably not be easy. The more Ethan thought about it, the more annoyed he felt, and his head began to ache. He simply decided to stop thinking and go to the hotel's restaurant for something to eat. He left his room, walked through the corridor, and arrived at the hotel restaurant. The restaurant wasn't too crowded, and the quiet environment made it very comfortable. Ethan chose a window seat, and a waiter immediately came over with a menu. He casually ordered a steak and a cup of coffee, then leaned back in his chair, looking out at the street scene through the window, his thoughts drifting. Outside, pedestrians came and went, and vehicles flowed endlessly. Everything in this foreign land was so unfamiliar. Soon, the waiter brought the steak and coffee, placed them on the table, and then politely said, "Please enjoy your meal. If you need anything, feel free to call me." Ethan nodded politely, said, "Thank you," then picked up his knife and fork and began to enjoy the exquisite steak. Just as he was savoring his meal, a sound suddenly came from outside the window. He looked up and saw the dim sky illuminated as if it were daylight by fireworks. Colorful lights bloomed in the air, beautiful as a dream. Ethan couldn't help but stop what he was doing, deeply captivated by the magnificent sight before him. Since fireworks were banned in his home country, he hadn't seen such dazzling and colorful fireworks in a long time. These fireworks were like flowers blooming in the darkness, adorning the entire night sky in a dreamlike spectacle. He quickly called a nearby waiter and asked curiously, "Hello, excuse me, Is there a fireworks display over there? The waiter smiled and replied, No, sir. That's the Chinese community. Today, it's supposedly the Chinese Minor New Year. I don't quite understand what that means, but they celebrate like this every year. Hearing the waiter's words, a wave of emotion surged through Ethan. He couldn't help but recall the warm festivals he had spent with his family back home. Each memory was like a precious treasure, sparkling in his heart. He stood up and walked to the window, his eyes fixed on the sky illuminated by fireworks, his thoughts drifting. The blooming fireworks seemed to transform into the warm lights of memory, lighting his way home. At this moment, he wished he could share this beautiful moment with his distant family, telling them how much he missed and cared for them. After a while, Ethan finished the rest of his meal. After paying the bill, he slowly walked out of the restaurant. His steps unconsciously led him towards the direction of the Chinese community, as if an invisible force was drawing him. The community entrance was decorated with lanterns and lights, bustling with activity. Laughter and cheerful voices continuously emanated, and the air was filled with the familiar aroma of delicious food. Ethan stood not far away, quietly soaking in the festive atmosphere unique to China, his heart filled with warmth. Just then, a friendly Chinese elder noticed him and proactively approached him. Young man alone? Come, join the celebration. Saying that, he pulled Ethan into the community. Ethan mingled with the crowd, watching children happily run and play, and adults sitting together, chatting and laughing. The feeling of loneliness gradually dissipated from his heart. He laughed and celebrated with everyone, sharing in the joy. On this special night, in a foreign land, he once again felt that deep sense of Chinese camaraderie, as if he had found a place where his heart belonged. The old man smiled and came to his side, looking at him with loving eyes. He said, Young man, are you here for work? Ethan smiled and nodded, politely replying, Grandpa Jean, my name is Ethan Yi. I'm just here to wander around. I'm not here for work. The old man stroked his gray beard and said with a smile, Oh, I see. Then what are you doing here? Ethan scratched his head, a little embarrassed. To be honest, I don't really know what I'm doing. I just think the scenery here is beautiful, and I wanted to walk around and see things. The old man nodded in understanding, then asked again, Have you eaten yet? If not, you can come to my house for a meal. Ethan quickly waved his hand, declining. Thank you for your kindness, Grandpa, but I've already eaten, and I'm not hungry, so you really don't need to trouble yourself. The old man smiled and said gently, It's all right. This old man loves lively company. If you don't mind, come sit at my house. We're making dumplings today, and you can try my cooking. Hearing the old man's invitation, Ethan was tempted but still hesitated. How could I? We're strangers. It wouldn't be right to just go to your house for a meal. The old man patted his shoulder and laughed. Haha, what's not right about it? Meeting is fate, and besides, we're both Chinese. Meeting here is also a kind of fate, isn't it? Ethan was touched by the old man's warmth and finally stopped declining. He smiled and said, That's fine then, I'll impose on you. But I won't eat your dumplings for free. I'll help you make them later. The old man nodded with satisfaction, chuckled, and said, Good, then let's go. My surname is Jean, so just call me Grandpa Jean. With that, the old man led Ethan to his house. Grandpa Jean's house wasn't large, but it was very cozy. As soon as they entered, they could smell a faint aroma of dumpling filling. Son, you sit for a bit. I'll go prepare, Grandpa Jean said, then walked into the kitchen. Ethan looked around, and a few old photos on the wall caught his eye. In the photos, Grandpa Jean looked spirited in his youth, and there were also family portraits, with everyone smiling happily. Soon, Grandpa Jean came out of the kitchen, holding a rolling pin and dumpling wrappers. Come, son, let's do this together. Ethan quickly washed his hands and sat at the table, learning to make dumplings with Grandpa Jean. At first, his dumplings were oddly shaped, making Grandpa Jean laugh heartily. Don't rush, son, slowly, just like this. Grandpa Jean patiently demonstrated. Under Grandpa Jean's guidance, Ethan's dumplings gradually began to take shape. The two made dumplings while chatting about everyday life. Under Grandpa Jean's guidance, Ethan's dumplings gradually began to take shape. The two made dumplings while chatting about everyday life. Ethan, why did you suddenly think of coming to Sakhalin Island? To be honest, the tourism resources here are relatively scarce. Grandpa Jean asked, a puzzled look on his face. Ethan smiled and said, Grandpa Jean, I have a trading company back home, and I was thinking of coming here to see if there were any opportunities for cooperation, as the resources here are indeed very rich. By the way, why aren't your family members at home? Grandpa Jean smiled and replied, My wife loves lively gatherings, but her legs aren't very good, so the children pushed her out to stroll around. Just as he finished speaking, the front door opened, and two middle-aged women slowly walked in, pushing a kindly-looking old lady in a wheelchair. Grandpa Jean quickly wiped his hands on the towel on the table, then walked over quickly and said, Wifey, I invited a young man who just arrived from China to come home and eat dumplings. The old lady glared at him and said, My dear, you invited someone to eat dumplings, but how can you make the guest make them himself? Grandpa Jin's two daughters-in-law heard this and immediately took the rolling pin from Ethan's hand, beginning to make dumplings themselves. Seeing this, Ethan had no choice but to wipe his hands and walk over to Grandpa Jin. Grandpa Jin smiled and explained to his wife. Ethan was too enthusiastic and insisted on helping. I couldn't stop him. Then he turned to Ethan and introduced, "This is my eldest daughter-in-law, Wang Xiuqin, and this is my second daughter-in-law, Li Salon." The two daughters-in-law smiled and nodded at Ethan. The old lady warmly greeted Ethan. "Son, you can just call me Grandma Lin. Come sit down, don't be a stranger." Ethan followed her instruction, came closer, and said, "Grandma Lin, I'm sorry for troubling you." "No trouble at all, no trouble. More people means more fun," Grandma Lin said cheerfully. Just then, two little boys bounced over, pulling at Ethan's clothes. "Brother, my name is Jin Xiaolong, Jin Xiao. Can you tell us about fun places in China?" Ethan crouched down and patiently began telling them stories. China has so many fun places. For example, the Forbidden City in the capital, that's where the emperors used to live. The palaces are incredibly magnificent. And there's the Great Wall, like a giant dragon winding through the mountains. It's so majestic. Jin Xiaolong and Jin Xiaohu listened intently, their eyes sparkling. The eldest daughter-in-law, Wang Xiuqin, put the wrapped dumplings into the pot. Soon, the aroma of dumplings filled the entire house. Everyone gathered around the dining table. Grandpa Jin raised his glass and looked at Ethan with a smile, saying, "Come, Ethan, let's clink glasses and welcome you to our home." Ethan quickly raised his glass, a sincere smile on his face, his heart full of warmth. He gently clinked glasses with Grandpa Jin, and then both took a small sip of wine. Putting down his glass, Ethan smiled at Grandpa Jin and said, "Grandpa Jin, my visit today was rather unexpected, so I didn't prepare a gift. However, I just noticed that Grandma Lin's legs seem to be immobile due to blocked meridians. If you don't mind, I'd like to try and help Grandma Lin with her treatment." Grandpa Jin's face immediately lit up with surprise. He said excitedly, "Ethan, is that true? I've taken Grandma Lin to the hospital for many checkups before, but the doctors couldn't figure out what was causing it. If you're confident you can cure Grandma Lin's illness, that would be wonderful." He then looked at Ethan with expectant eyes. Ethan nodded, his expression serious. "Grandpa Jin, I can't guarantee a complete cure, but I will do my utmost." With that, Ethan stood up and walked to Grandma Lin's side, carefully examining her. He first gently pressed several acupuncture points, asking Grandma Lin how she felt, then observed the color and swelling of her legs. After a thorough examination, Ethan gradually gained some confidence. He took a deep breath, slowly channeled a wisp of spiritual energy, gathering it at his fingertips. His finger gently touched the blocked meridian on Grandma Lin's leg, and the wisp of spiritual energy, like a gentle stream, slowly permeated inward. As the spiritual energy was injected, Grandma Lin's leg trembled slightly, and a hint of pain appeared on her face. Ethan's heart tightened, but he didn't stop. He continued to carefully control the spiritual energy, little by little clearing the blocked meridian. Time passed, minute by minute. Ethan was completely focused, fine beads of sweat appearing on his forehead. Sweat trickled down his cheeks, but his eyes remained firm and concentrated, not daring to show any slackness. Finally, with Ethan's efforts, the blocked meridian in Grandma Lin's leg was gradually cleared. Her leg no longer trembled, and the painful expression gradually disappeared, replaced by a feeling of comfort and relaxation. Ethan breathed a sigh of relief. He gently withdrew his finger and wiped the sweat from his forehead. Looking at Grandma Lin's gradually recovering leg, he smiled and said, "Grandma Lin, you can try to move your leg now." Grandma Lin, half believing, gently moved her leg. A look of surprise immediately blossomed on her face, and she exclaimed excitedly, "Oh, it really feels much lighter, child. You're truly amazing." Grandpa Jin and the others heard Grandma Lin say this, and relief and joy appeared on their faces. Grandpa Jin excitedly held Ethan's hand, his voice trembling slightly. "Ethan, we really owe you so much. We don't know how to thank you. You, my child, truly possess great skill." Ethan quickly said, "Grandpa Jin, please don't say that. I'm just happy to be able to help Grandma Lin. It's what I should do." Just then, Li Solon, Grandpa Jin's second daughter-in-law, brought a basin of hot water and said, "Ethan, you've been busy for so long. Quickly wipe off your sweat and rest." Saying that, she gently wiped Ethan with a hot towel. Everyone gathered around Grandma Lin, laughter and cheerful voices continuous. Grandma Lin remarked, "I feel like I've been given a new lease on life, all thanks to Ethan." After a while, Grandpa Jin said, "Today is truly a day worth celebrating. We must enjoy this dumpling meal thoroughly." Everyone responded to Grandpa Jin's words, gathering around the dining table again to enjoy the delicious dumplings. Grandpa Jin kept putting dumplings on Ethan's plate, muttering, "Son, eat more. These are homemade. They're delicious." Ethan smiled and nodded, eating the dumplings heartily, praising their good taste repeatedly. Just then, Jean Xiaolong, blinking his big eyes, asked Ethan. Big brother, you're so amazing. Will you come to my grandpa's house again in the future? Ethan touched the boy's head and said, Yes, I will definitely come to see you whenever I have time. Just then, a knock came from the door. Wang Xiuqin's face showed a faint smile. She stood up and said, It must be Jean Xixiang and Jean Sidu back. As she prepared to open the door, Grandma Lin suddenly spoke. Xiuqin, let me get it instead. It'll be a surprise for those two boys. Saying that, Grandma Lin stepped towards the door, a look of eager anticipation on her face. As the door opened, Jean Xixiang and Jean Situ appeared at the entrance. Seeing their own mother open the door, they were first stunned, then quickly rushed forward to support Grandma Lin. Jean Xixiang said somewhat reproachfully to Wang Xiuqin, Xiuqin, how could you let Mom open the door? You know Mom's legs aren't very good. Jean Situ, beside him, also chimed in. Li Tsulan, you should have stopped Mom. What if she accidentally fell? His voice was filled with worry. Grandma Lin, at this, immediately bristled, her eyebrows rising. She glared and scolded. What are you two brats saying? Believe it or not, I'll hit you both. Saying that, she raised her hand to strike them. Grandpa Jean quickly held her back, laughing. All right, don't mind the children. You two let go. Your mom's legs are better now. Come quickly and eat dumplings. The two brothers then, as if waking from a dream, hurried to the dining table and sat down. It was then they noticed Ethan sitting beside them. Both looked puzzled and turned to their father. Grandpa Jean smiled and explained, This is Ethan Yi. He's the one who cured your mom's legs. Jean Situ heard his father's words, looked at Ethan in astonishment, and quickly said, Oh, Ethan, thank you so much. Ethan smiled and waved his hand. Uncle Jean, please don't be polite. Meeting his fate. Jean Xixiang looked at Ethan with a strange expression, then spoke. Ethan, are you the owner of Starling Pharmaceuticals? Ethan smiled and nodded, responding. Uncle Jean, you've heard of Starling Pharmaceuticals? Jean Xixiang nodded, then continued. A while ago, I happened to meet a girl named Natasha. She told me that she would meet the owner of Starling Pharmaceuticals in the future, which is you, Ethan. Hearing this, Ethan quickly pressed. Uncle Jean, did she say anything else? This is very important to me. Jean Xixiang pondered for a moment before replying. She asked me to tell you that she is currently at the southernmost tip of Sakhalin Island, but the exact location can only be known by asking a boy named Little Ivan. Additionally, she reminded me that once I met you, I should leave this place within a month, otherwise my life might be in danger. Ethan frowned deeply, his eyes profound and solemn, as if lost in endless thought. His heart was filled with doubt and confusion. He thought to himself, this time ability is truly amazing. It can even foresee future events, including my encounters with Little Ivan and Jean Xixiang. He took a deep breath, his gaze firmly fixed on Jean Xixiang, and said in a low, sincere voice, Uncle Jean, thank you very much for telling me this information. At the same time, I hope you all leave here as soon as possible. If you don't know where to go, you are welcome to return to China. Jean Xixiang nodded slightly and replied solemnly, All right, Ethan, don't worry. Our family needs to discuss where we'll go next. Of course, if our family decides to return to China, we might need your help then. Ethan nodded without hesitation, promising, No problem. If you're willing, you're welcome to return to China. I have some influence and connections there, and I can offer assistance and protection. If you have any problems or difficulties, you can contact me at any time. With that, Ethan said goodbye to everyone and left the Jean family. However, he didn't go directly to Little Ivan's house. Instead, he returned to his hotel room. Back at the hotel, Ethan didn't relax his guard. Instead, he felt even more strongly that something was amiss. Both his encounter with Little Ivan and Grandpa Jean seemed too coincidental, and they had both approached him proactively, which raised his suspicions. So, he decided to take action, using his powerful mental energy to envelop the Jean family and observe their every move. Throughout this process, Ethan remained highly vigilant, not missing any suspicious details. He wanted to figure out if there was a conspiracy hidden behind these coincidences, or if someone had deliberately arranged all of this. He had to be fully prepared for unknown dangers and potential threats. Ethan's mental energy was like an invisible net, tightly covering the Jean family. He clearly saw the Jean family members busily clearing the dining table, then gathering to discuss their future whereabouts. After observing for nearly an hour and still finding no abnormalities, he decided to withdraw his mental energy and muttered to himself, Am I overthinking this? Perhaps it was all just Natasha's careful preparation? But if she truly has the ability to foresee the future, why didn't she avoid the Rakshasa organization's pursuit in advance? Since he couldn't understand the reasons, he simply gave up thinking about it, no longer dwelling on the matter. Immediately after, he used his mental energy to envelop Little Ivan's home. At this moment, the night was as black as ink. The room was silent. Little Ivan was already lying quietly in bed, asleep. His face, in the soft moonlight, appeared especially serene. his breathing even and steady, as if all the world's clamor had nothing to do with him. Ethan held his breath and concentrated, letting his powerful mental energy sweep quickly through the entire room like an invisible current. He was fully focused, not missing any corner, hoping to discover some valuable clues. However, as his mental energy swept through the bathroom, he unexpectedly saw Anna alone, washing herself. In that instant, Ethan's face flushed crimson. He immediately, reflexively, retracted his mental energy. He chastised himself repeatedly for his rashness and impropriety, trying to calm his wildly beating heart. Ethan took a deep breath, trying to regain his composure. He knew his behavior just now had been too abrupt, and he was filled with guilt. After a while, he again concentrated, but this time more cautiously, ensuring that a similar awkward situation wouldn't happen again. The room remained quiet, with only little Ivan's steady breathing. Ethan focused his attention, carefully sensing every tiny change in the surrounding environment, not missing any subtle fluctuations. His mental energy was like a fine net, covering the entire room and surrounding area. Not until Anna emerged from the bathroom, her wet hair draped over her shoulders, emanating a faint fragrance, did Ethan slowly withdraw his mental energy. Ethan lay quietly on the soft bed, his mind constantly replaying everything that had happened today. But he couldn't find any anomalies. Everything seemed so natural and reasonable. It seems I need to go to little Ivan's place tomorrow to ask if he has met Natasha, Ethan murmured. Early the next morning, sunlight streamed into the room through a gap in the curtains. Ethan got up early. After a quick wash, he headed out to little Ivan's place. On the way, Ethan stopped at a supermarket to buy some food and daily necessities. When he arrived at little Ivan's doorstep, Anna was just about to open the door and go out. She spotted Ethan standing outside the door, a flicker of surprise in her eyes, then turned and called into the house. Little Ivan, your brother Ethan is here. Hurry up and wake up. Little Ivan heard the voice and immediately sat up in bed, his face full of excitement. He hurriedly put on his clothes and corrected Anna. Mommy, that's brother Ethan, not Uncle Ethan. That's what I called him when we first met. With that, he quickly ran to the door and pulled Ethan into the house. Upon entering the house, Ethan placed the food and daily necessities he bought on the table and smiled as he asked Anna, Anna, how is your recovery going? I saw you were about to go out just now. Did you have something you needed to do? Anna looked at Ethan gratefully and smiled, replying, Thanks to you, I'm much better. I was just about to go out to buy some groceries when you arrived. Little Ivan, meanwhile, excitedly played with the things Ethan brought, constantly muttering, Wow, there's my favorite chocolate. Brother Ethan, how did you know I wanted this? Ethan touched little Ivan's head and said with a smile, Because big brother loved to eat it when he was a kid too. At this, Anna said, Ethan, please sit for a while. I'll get you some water. Ethan quickly waved his hand, indicating Anna shouldn't bother. He said, Anna, please don't trouble yourself. Today, I came here because I have something I want to ask little Ivan. Anna stopped what she was doing and looked at Ethan with some confusion, thinking that little Ivan was just a 7-year-old child. What could he possibly know? But since it was Ethan's request, she still nodded with a smile. Ethan took out his phone, found the photo Petrov had sent him earlier, and handed the phone to little Ivan, asking gently, Little Ivan, do you recognize the person in this photo? Little Ivan curiously took the phone and looked closely. Suddenly, his eyes widened, and an astonished expression appeared on his face. He pointed at the girl in the photo and said, Isn't this Natasha? Hearing this, Ethan's heart swelled with joy. He quickly pressed, Are you sure? Little Ivan nodded vigorously. Yes, I'm sure, this is Natasha. And also, brother Ethan, last time I thought your name sounded familiar, and now I finally remember. Natasha once mentioned your name to me. Hearing little Ivan's words, Ethan's heart swelled with joy, and he quickly asked, Do you know where Natasha went? Little Ivan frowned, thought for a moment, then shook his head. I don't know. That day I was playing by the door, and she passed by and gave me a box of chocolate. She also said some things to me, but I don't remember. Oh, that's right. Natasha's sister also gave me a letter, saying it was for brother Ethan. I'll go get it now. With that, little Ivan ran back into the room like a gust of wind. In a moment, little Ivan ran out, panting, clutching a letter tightly. Brother Ethan, here you go. He handed the letter to Ethan. Ethan took the letter, feeling a little anxious. He took a deep breath and slowly opened the envelope. Ethan, by the time you read this letter, you've probably been looking for me for a long time. I'm in a base under Korsky prison at the southernmost tip of Sakhalin Island. Don't worry, I'm safe. But if you come to rescue me, you must be careful. The leader of the mutant organization, Zach, is here, and Ella is also here. After reading it, Ethan put the letter back in the envelope. He smiled and said to little Ivan, Brother has something to go out for. I'll come play with you next time, okay? Although little Ivan didn't want Ethan to leave, he reluctantly said, Brother Ethan, you go handle your business, but next time you come, remember to bring me chocolate. Ethan nodded, patted his head, and said, Brother will definitely bring you chocolate next time. Then he turned to Anna and said, Anna, I'm going to find my friends, so I won't stay any longer. I'll leave my phone number with you. You can contact me anytime if you have difficulties in the future. With that, he wrote down his number on a blank piece of paper on the table and left. The letter read, Ethan, by the time you read this letter, you've probably been looking for me for a long time. I know you'll definitely come for me. But the situation is very complex now, and I must tell you some important things. I am currently in a base under Korsky prison at the southernmost tip of Sakhalin Island. This is one of Rakshasa's secret strongholds. Don't worry, I am relatively safe for now, but only temporarily. Zach, the leader of the mutant organization, is also here, and he is an extremely dangerous and powerful enemy. Ella is here too, and I've learned some of her secrets. If you decide to come rescue me, you must be extremely cautious. This place is full of traps and dangers, and Rakshasa has immense power. They possess various superpowered individuals and high-tech weapons. In any case, please ensure your own safety. If possible, try to avoid direct confrontation with Rakshasa and look for other ways to solve the problem. I believe in your wisdom and courage. You will surely find a suitable way to get me out. After reading the letter, Ethan carefully placed it back into the envelope. Then, a warm smile appeared on his face as he softly said to little Ivan, Brother has something to take care of, so I have to go out for a bit. But don't worry, I'll come back to play with you again next time, okay? Although little Ivan was very reluctant to let Ethan leave, he nodded obediently, his eyes full of reluctance. He slowly said, Brother Ethan, then you go handle your business. But remember to bring me chocolate again next time you come. Ethan nodded gently, softly stroking little Ivan's hair, and smiled. Don't worry, brother will keep his promise. Next time, I'll bring you more delicious chocolates. Then, he turned and looked at Anna, speaking sincerely. Anna, I'm going to find my friends now and can't stay any longer. I'm giving you my phone number. If you encounter any difficulties or need help in the future, you can call me anytime. With that, he picked up a pen from the table, wrote his phone number on a blank piece of paper, and then gently placed it on the table. Finally, he waved goodbye to the two and left. After leaving, Ethan took out his phone and called Brock Bailey. The call quickly connected. Ethan, I've been searching all day in northern Sakhalin Island and haven't found any news about the Rakshasa organization. Do you have any clues? Ethan said, Brock, I found Natasha's exact location. Come to Korsky City immediately, and we'll discuss the specifics when you arrive. Brock Bailey said excitedly, That's great. We finally have a lead. I'm heading there now. After hanging up, Ethan summoned his flying sword and sped towards Korsky City. Along the way, his heart was filled with anticipation and tension. This operation was of great significance to him, not only concerning Natasha's safety, but also potentially uncovering the conspiracy behind the Rakshasa organization. During the flight, he constantly thought about his upcoming action plan. He knew that facing the Rakshasa organization and the mutant organization, they had to be extremely careful and could not afford any oversight. 5 minutes later, he arrived in Korsky City. Ethan landed in a secluded spot, put away his flying sword, and then began looking for a safe place to stay. He found a small inn on the outskirts of the city and checked in under an assumed name. Upon entering the room, he immediately checked his surroundings to ensure he wasn't being followed or monitored. With everything ready, he sat on the bed, waiting for Brock Bailey's arrival. Time passed by second. Finally, as night fell, a knock came at the door. Ethan opened it and saw Brock Bailey, looking tired but with determined eyes. Brock Bailey, looking tired but with determined eyes. After a brief exchange of greetings, the two began to discuss their next plan. In the dim room, Brock Bailey and Ethan sat opposite each other, their faces grave. Brock Bailey was the first to break the silence. Ethan, the place Natasha is held is so dangerous, we need to plan carefully. A hint of worry was in his eyes. Ethan nodded slightly, his gaze fixed on the map. Indeed, we can't act rashly. According to Natasha's letter, it's full of traps and powerful enemies. Without thorough preparation, we might put her in even greater danger. They began to meticulously analyze the known intelligence, envisioning various possible scenarios and formulating corresponding countermeasures. Every detail was discussed repeatedly, striving for foolproof execution. At this point, Brock Bailey asked, Ethan, I'm not very familiar with mutants. You said Ella is a high-level psychic. Will our actions be detected by her? His voice was filled with concern and doubt, and his brow was slightly furrowed, clearly very focused on this question. Ethan took a deep breath, trying to remain calm and composed. Then he answered calmly, Although Ella is a high-level psychic, it doesn't mean she can completely perceive our every move. In fact, psychics don't constantly release their mental energy to observe their surroundings because doing so consumes a lot of mental power. So, as long as we are careful, it's possible to avoid her detection. He paused slightly, then continued. Furthermore, I am also a high-level psychic, and I can interfere with her perception to mask our tracks, preventing her from detecting our presence. This way, we can better implement our plan. After hearing Ethan's explanation, Brock Bailey's worry lessened slightly, but he was still a bit uneasy. He frowned and asked, "But what if she really detects our movements?" Ethan nodded, his eyes firm and confident. "Of course, we've considered that possibility and formulated corresponding countermeasures. If Ella truly detects our actions, then we will have no choice but to launch a frontal assault and quickly break through their defenses. However, with our current strength, even if they have two psychics comparable to Golden Core Realm experts, they won't be able to stop us." Hearing this, Brock Bailey's expression finally relaxed a little, and his clenched fists slightly loosened. "All right, in that case, we'll go all out." Ethan patted Brock Bailey's shoulder. "Right, for now, we'll lie low here and act around midnight." Meanwhile, in the base beneath Kursky prison, Natasha was drinking vodka, her face slightly flushed. Across from her, Ella frowned and said, "I really don't understand you Russians. Both men and women are so obsessed with this strong liquor." Natasha smiled faintly, then gently swirled the wine glass in her hand, her eyes flashing with a dreamy glint as she softly said, "This drink is like our Russian character, passionate and direct. Every sip lets you feel its unique taste and charm." Ella looked at Natasha, a puzzled expression on her face. She asked, confused, "But why are you so obsessed with this strong liquor? Is it just because of its taste?" Natasha chuckled, her eyes revealing an indescribable emotion, and slowly said, "Actually, drinking isn't just about enjoying the taste. It's also a way to release stress and express emotions. For us, vodka represents courage, strength, and an indomitable spirit. When we drink a glass, we can forget our troubles and lighten our mood. And only under the influence of alcohol can we truly show our deepest, most authentic selves." Ella listened to Natasha's words and fell into deep thought. She recalled her past experiences, those pains and setbacks that had left her feeling helpless and lost. Perhaps, as Natasha said, drinking could be a way to release stress. However, Ella still maintained reservations about drinking. Just then, Natasha smiled and pushed her glass towards her, enthusiastically inviting, "Want to try some? Maybe you'll love it after just one drink." Ella frowned slightly, unhesitatingly pushing the glass back, and said firmly, "No, thank you for your kindness, but I really don't want to try. I know alcohol affects my judgment and reaction time, and I must keep my mind clear at all times." Natasha took a sip of wine, her lips curving upward as she teased, "Don't be so tense. Occasional relaxation is necessary. Besides, if you're always so high-strung, you'll break down sooner or later." Ella shook her head helplessly and gave a wry smile. "I also want to relax, but the situation is truly not optimistic right now. The opponents I face are getting stronger, and the missions are getting harder. If I can't stay vigilant at all times, I would have died at my opponent's hands long ago." Natasha put down her glass, sighed, and comforted her. "I understand your concerns, but sometimes, being too tense can actually hinder your effectiveness. Proper relaxation helps adjust your mindset to better face challenges." Ella took a deep breath, trying to calm her inner anxiety. She looked at Natasha gratefully and said sincerely, "Thank you for your concern, but I truly dare not let my guard down." Natasha nodded, no longer pressing Ella. She picked up her glass, drank it all, then sat there quietly, her thoughts drifting far away. Soon after, she murmured in a low voice, "Haven't you ever thought of leaving? I guess you already know that your parents were killed by Zach, and Zach adopted you simply because he saw your abilities. With your current strength, seeking revenge for your parents is simply a pipe dream. Although General Warren values you now, once Zach senses your desire for revenge, he will definitely stop at nothing to eliminate you." Ella's body trembled slightly, a flicker of pain and struggle in her eyes, but it quickly returned to firmness. "I know all of this, but I can't just leave. I have to wait for the right moment. Only when I'm strong enough will I have a chance for revenge." Natasha gently patted Ella's shoulder. "But while you wait, you might lose even more." Ella bit her lip. "Then I will fight for it. I won't give up easily." Natasha shook her head helplessly. "All right, since you've made up your mind, I can only wish you good luck. I just hope you don't let hatred blind your eyes and do something you'll regret." Ella remained silent, falling into deep thought. The atmosphere in the room became unusually heavy, with only Natasha's occasional sips of wine breaking the silence. After a long while, Ella looked up, her gaze fixed on Natasha. "No matter what, I have to try. Even if I fail in the end, I'll have no regrets." Natasha sighed helplessly, a hint of resignation and pity in her eyes. She deeply understood the girl's inner resolve, but also worried about the risks and consequences she might face. However, faced with Ella's firm stance, she knew that further persuasion would be futile. So, Natasha decided to offer her help and posed a question. "All right, since your mind is made up, I'll do my best to help you. But what price are you willing to pay?" Ella stood tall, her gaze firm and unwavering as she looked directly at Natasha, answering without hesitation. "I am willing to pay any price, even if it includes myself." Her voice conveyed a sense of resolve and unwavering determination. as if she were fully prepared to sacrifice everything. Natasha smiled faintly, a hint of cunning flashing in her eyes. She said softly, "Remember what you said. Tonight, don't go anywhere. Just stay here with me." Ella was slightly startled, but then nodded in agreement. So, she sat there quietly, watching Natasha drink alone. At 2 a.m., Ethan and Brock Bailey had quietly infiltrated and hidden behind a small pile of rocks outside Kursky prison. Ethan carefully observed the prison with his psychic energy, then whispered to Brock Bailey, "To enter the underground base, we first have to get past the prison guards." Brock Bailey frowned, asking, puzzled, "Do you have a way to enter the underground base without alerting the guards?" Ethan pondered for a moment, then replied, "If I directly teleport in with spatial abilities, they'll likely detect me." Then, he quickly exchanged 2 invisibility talismans from the system shop, handing one to Brock Bailey, a faint, confident smile playing on his lips. "But now, with this invisibility talisman, we can enter the prison without anyone knowing." Just as he finished speaking, a crisp notification sound suddenly echoed in his mind. Ding! System mission issued. Please successfully rescue Natasha and assist Ella in avenging Zack. Mission reward, a high-level mountain protection array. Please complete this mission within 48 hours. Hearing this news, Ethan's heart swelled with joy. It seemed that after completing this mission, he would receive another generous reward. Ethan and Brock Bailey quickly activated their invisibility talismans. With a flash of light, their figures instantly became translucent, then completely disappeared into the air. They cautiously approached the prison entrance, each step as careful as walking on a tightrope. They even controlled their breathing to be incredibly faint, afraid of causing the slightest disturbance. After successfully entering the prison, they truly realized that the layout here was much more complex than they had imagined. Dim lights cast eerie shadows on the walls, and intricate, crisscrossing passages were dizzying, as if they were in a massive maze. "Be careful, don't get lost," Ethan whispered cautiously to Brock Bailey. His voice was as soft as a breeze rustling through leaves, yet filled with concern and tension. Just then, heavy footsteps echoed from far away, growing closer. Their nerves instantly tensed, and they quickly ducked into the dark shadows nearby. It was a patrol of guards, armed with sharp weapons, their gazes like torches, vigilantly sweeping every corner of the surroundings. Once the guards passed, Ethan and Brock Bailey slowly exhaled and continued forward. After a long and tense search, they finally found the entrance to the underground base. However, the entrance was equipped with numerous traps. The slightest carelessness would trigger an alarm. Ethan dared not be careless. He concentrated all his mental energy, focusing intently on carefully exploring the mechanism's structure and how to disarm it. Large beads of sweat continuously rolled down his forehead, but he had no time to wipe them away. After a tense and suffocating search, Ethan, relying on his excellent intelligence and strong willpower, successfully disarmed the mechanism. Only then were the two able to smoothly enter the underground base. A strange atmosphere permeated the underground base, so quiet it made one's hair stand on end. Since Ethan feared that a wide-range mental scan would be detected, they could only search meticulously, room by room, not daring to show any slackness. Ethan and Brock Bailey in the underground base carefully advanced, each step as light as a cat's paw, fearing to make any sound. Suddenly, a faint electrical buzzing sound came from ahead. The two instantly stopped, their eyes meeting, both seeing wariness in the other's gaze. They slowly approached the sound source and found a large electrical box, its indicator lights blinking with an eerie glow. Brock Bailey was about to reach out to touch it when Ethan stopped him. "Be careful, this could very well be a trap." However, just as Brock Bailey retracted his hand, alarms suddenly blared throughout the area, and the entire underground base instantly became brightly lit. The piercing alarm echoed in the enclosed space, making their hearts pound involuntarily. Ethan and Brock Bailey's hearts sank instantly. It seemed they would have to force their way through. Ethan handed an intermediate defense talisman to Brock Bailey and said with a serious face, "You hold them off here. I'll go rescue Natasha first, and then I'll come back to meet you and leave. Remember, if things go south, use this talisman immediately." With that, Ethan unleashed his powerful mental energy, fully searching for Natasha's whereabouts. At the same time, Brock Bailey no longer concealed himself. He slammed his palm forward, fiercely striking the electrical box. In an instant, the electrical box was shattered, metal fragments flying everywhere. As the electrical box broke, the entire base plunged into darkness, with only sporadic emergency lights emitting a dim glow. However, just then, a powerful golden core realm aura emanated from Brock Bailey, like a towering mountain, drawing attention. This aura swept through the surroundings like a storm, making everyone involuntarily avert their gaze. Meanwhile, the piercing alarm suddenly blared, its shrill sound like a sharp sword piercing into Ella's heart, making her heart clench violently. She quickly stood up, her eyes filled with tension and confusion, preparing to see what was happening. However, Just as Ella was about to stand up, Natasha reached out and firmly and forcefully pressed her back into her seat. Natasha's expression was calm as she lightly said, "Ella, this is a perfect opportunity for your revenge. Have you forgotten what you just said?" Ella frowned, her exquisite face now etched with anxiety. She said uneasily, "Natasha, it's not that I don't trust you, but Zack is a top-tier ability user after all. His ability is Diamond Hard Skin, which makes him almost impossible to kill. Every time I face him, I feel a deep sense of powerlessness." Chapter 328. Natasha smiled faintly, that smile holding a reassuring power. She replied, "You don't need to worry about any of that. Have you forgotten my ability? Although I am only a mid-level ability user, I can still see many things in the future. I have foreseen the outcome of this. Believe me, Zack is not invincible. He will die here today." Although Ella still didn't quite believe that Zack could be killed, she remained seated quietly. After all, if the newcomers could kill Zack, it would be revenge for her. Whether it was hope or disappointment, she had to bravely accept it. Only then could she truly emerge from the shadow of the past and embrace a new life. "I hope the future you see comes true," Ella said slowly. As soon as her words fell, a flash of light appeared, and Ethan's figure instantly materialized in their room. His aura was still a bit chaotic. However, before he could speak, Natasha had already said with a smile, "Ethan, you're finally here. It seems the future I saw was correct. Now, I have something I'd like to ask of you, and of course, I will offer you ample compensation in return." Hearing this, Ethan couldn't help but frown, filled with displeasure. Anger flickered in his deep eyes. He intensely disliked this feeling, especially after meeting Natasha. He felt increasingly that everything he had done seemed to have been prearranged by her. This made him feel incredibly suppressed and angry, as if he were a puppet being manipulated. "To be honest, if it weren't because you're Petrov's sister, I would have unhesitatingly chosen to kill you immediately. I truly detest this feeling of being manipulated. Now, you can tell me what you want to ask of me and what compensation you can offer." Ethan's voice was cold and merciless, like a chilling wind from the deepest hell, sending shivers down one's spine. Natasha still wore that faint smile, seemingly unaffected by Ethan's cold voice. She softly said, "I didn't manipulate you. All of this was your own choice. I merely saw a certain scene in the future. All right, let's get down to business. I need your help to eliminate Zack, and in return, Ella and I will guard your future Azure Island for 20 years. What do you think of this deal?" Ethan snorted, saying somewhat helplessly, "Seeing your calm expression, I knew you had already foreseen my agreement. I hope you keep your promise." Just then, a huge roar echoed, deafening, and the entire room shook violently, as if a powerful earthquake had struck. Ethan immediately scanned the surroundings with his mental energy, realizing that the underground base had been breached, and Brock Bailey was now confronting Zack in the air. From their states, it was clear that Brock Bailey had the upper hand. His aura was immense, like an insurmountable mountain. Brock Bailey formed hand seals, muttering incantations, and a powerful energy fluctuation emanated from him. The airflow around him began to spin wildly, forming small tornado-like storms, his robes fluttering, his presence immense. His eyes were firm and sharp, and each incantation brought with it a powerful energy convergence. Zack was not to be outdone. His body's diamond-hard state intensified, shining brightly, attempting to resist Brock Bailey's attack. His diamond-like body reflected a cold light under the moonlight, every inch of his skin seemingly transformed into an indestructible fortress. Zack roared, powerful sound waves creating ripples in the surrounding air, his muscles tensed, preparing for the impending attack. Brock Bailey forcefully pushed his hands forward, and a dazzling beam of light shot towards Zack like lightning. Wherever the light passed, space itself seemed distorted, carrying an aura of destruction. Zack gritted his teeth, crossing his arms over his chest, his diamond-hard body emitting an even more dazzling light, forming a solid shield. The moment the light collided with the shield, a loud bang echoed through the sky, and a huge energy shockwave spread outwards. The surrounding clouds were instantly dispersed, and dust from the ground rose into the air, creating a sky-obscuring scene. Zack was pushed back dozens of meters by this powerful force, but he quickly stabilized himself and charged at Brock Bailey again. Brock Bailey's eyes were like torches. He flashed, instantly appearing above Zack. He formed hand seals again, his incantations becoming more rapid. A powerful pressure descended from the air, as if to crush Zack. Zack felt this pressure, his face becoming grim, but he still didn't retreat, instead resisting this terrifying force with all his might. Zack roared, diamond light erupting from his body. He stomped his feet on the empty air, charging towards Brock Bailey like a cannonball. Brock Bailey's hands danced, forming complex seals, his incantations continuous. A protective energy shield instantly formed before him. Zack's fist, carrying immense power, smashed against the shield formed by the protective energy, creating a dull impact sound, and the shield rippled. Brock Bailey's expression shifted slightly. He forcefully waved his hands, and the shield transformed into countless light blades that shot towards Zack. Zack spun rapidly, his diamond-hard body deflecting the energy blades. He used the momentum to close in on Brock Bailey, launching a flying kick directly at his face. Brock Bailey dodged to the side and countered with a palm strike, his palm containing powerful energy fluctuations. The two clashed at close quarters, fists and palms meeting. Each collision triggered a massive energy explosion. The surrounding space became distorted under this powerful impact, and huge cracks appeared in the ground below. After they separated, Brock Bailey shouted excitedly, "What a thrill! It's been a long time since I've had such a satisfying fight. You're worthy of my serious attention." With that, he immediately took out a pair of mountain-splitting gauntlets, radiating a powerful aura from his storage ring, and quickly put them on. After putting on the gauntlets, Brock Bailey stared intently at Zack, his eyes revealing seriousness and focus. He solemnly declared, "Since coming here, this is the first time I've used my weapon in battle." As soon as his words fell, Brock Bailey, like a cannonball, charged fiercely towards Zack. His speed was incredibly fast, like a flash of lightning streaking across the sky. In the blink of an eye, he was in front of Zack, and on his fists, a faint light shimmered. The power contained within the mountain-splitting gauntlets was converging. Chapter 329. Zack saw Brock Bailey's fierce charge, a cruel glint in his eyes. The diamond-like light from his body intensified, preparing to meet Brock Bailey's thunderous strike. Just as Brock Bailey's fist was about to smash into Zack, Zack suddenly flickered, avoiding the blow with incredible speed. Brock Bailey's punch missed its target, striking the ground instead, causing dirt and rocks to fly, and creating a huge crater. Zack seized this opportunity to counterattack, his fists raining down on Brock Bailey like a fierce storm. However, Brock Bailey, wearing his mountain-splitting gauntlets, was fearless. He completely disregarded defense and directly exchanged blows with his opponent. The two once again plunged into a fierce exchange, their fist winds roaring, light radiating everywhere. Brock Bailey's every punch carried the power to split mountains and shatter rocks. Zack, with his diamond-hard body, stubbornly resisted. As the battle continued, Brock Bailey's aura grew stronger. He shouted, "Zack, today is your day of defeat." Saying that, he unleashed a mysterious set of boxing techniques, his fist shadows overlapping, making it difficult for Zack to distinguish reality from illusion. Zack gradually fell on the defensive, and a flaw appeared in his guard. Brock Bailey seized the opportunity, striking Zack heavily in the chest. Zack grunted in pain, flying backward. But he quickly regained his footing and charged again, and the battle entered an even more intense phase. Below, Ella, watching the two fight, said nervously, "Ethan, aren't you going to help?" "No need," Ethan said with a smile. "Don't you see Brock is enjoying the fight? He's a golden core body cultivator. This level of combat is nothing to him. Let's just keep watching." "Oh," Ella nodded, then turned her gaze to the battle in the distance. Natasha, on the other hand, rolled her eyes and, with a flicker of her figure, returned to the underground base. Ethan noticed her movement and then focused a wisp of his mental energy on Natasha. What is she doing? He was also curious about what Natasha wanted to do back in the base. Natasha arrived at the base and didn't go anywhere else, but headed directly towards a secluded room. Upon reaching the door, she called out, "Ethan, I know you're observing me. Inside are Rakshas's genetic research documents. Come quickly and collect all these things." With that, she opened the door and walked in. Oh, seeing those documents, a glimmer of surprise flashed in Ethan's eyes. Without any hesitation, he moved, transforming into a streak of light, and rushed towards that room. In the blink of an eye, he entered the room. Once inside, Ethan immediately swept his sleeve, collecting all the documents into his system space. After doing all this, Ethan and Natasha swiftly left the room and returned to the surface. They stood there, quietly observing the battle in the sky. At this moment, the battle in the sky was raging intensely. Brock Bailey, although looked a bit disheveled, but his eyes glowed with an unconcealed excitement. Zack, on the other hand, seemed to be struggling. Several clear cracks had appeared in his diamond-hard body, and his face had turned very grim. Clearly, he had realized he was no match for Brock Bailey and was starting to consider escaping. Zack's gaze flickered. Seizing the momentum from Brock Bailey's attack, he took the opportunity to dash away into the distance. How could Brock Bailey let him escape so easily? He roared, "Where do you think you're going?" and pursued him at full speed. Two figures streaked across the sky, moving as fast as lightning. Natasha clenched her fists, saying nervously, "He absolutely cannot escape." Seeing this, Ethan unhesitatingly teleported, instantly appearing above Zack. He held a cold, shimmering flying sword in his hand and, without hesitation, slashed downwards. Zack suddenly saw Ethan appear above him. He couldn't help but freeze for a moment. He subconsciously raised his arm to block. However, he didn't know that this flying sword was a mid-grade spirit artifact, and its sharpness far exceeded his imagination. The flying sword easily severed Zach's left arm. Zach screamed in pain, his body losing balance, and he crashed heavily to the ground, creating a massive crater. Brock Bailey quickly rushed to Zach's side, planting a foot on his chest, a look of disdain on his face. He mocked, "You fought with me for so long. Although your strength isn't as good as mine, you're still a capable person. I can't believe you try to escape. You have no backbone. I look down on you." Ethan walked over, holding his flying sword, and said to Zach, "Brock, haven't you watched TV shows? Villains always die because they talk too much. Although we're not villains, we should resolve the problem quickly to avoid any accidents." With that, he unhesitatingly swung his flying sword and chopped off Zach's head. Just then, a clear voice echoed in Ethan's mind. "Ding! Congratulations, host. You have completed the mission. The mission reward, a high-level mountain protection array, has been issued to the system inventory. Please check it." This sudden news made Ethan's heart swell with joy. He immediately opened his system inventory to check. A mysterious, shimmering array pattern appeared before his eyes, radiating a powerful aura. Ethan's lips curved slightly, and a hint of excitement flashed in his eyes. This high-level mountain protection array was exactly what he needed. With it, the safety of his future island would be guaranteed. Ethan retracted his gaze and turned to Natasha, asking, "Are you going to find your brother, or do you plan to go somewhere else?" Natasha smiled and said, "I'm not going anywhere. Ella and I will follow you. Otherwise, we won't be able to withstand the retaliation from Rakshasa and the mutant organization." Ethan heard this and shook his head somewhat helplessly, but said nothing more. Then, he used his spatial ability to directly open a spatial portal and, taking the three of them, stepped inside. In the blink of an eye, they appeared outside the villa in Harbin. Ethan opened the door and led the three into the house, then said, "Let's rest here for a bit, and then tomorrow, we'll go to the capital with me." The three nodded in agreement. They also knew they needed a good rest now. Then, Ethan went directly to his room on the second floor. Brock Bailey stayed in a guest room on the first floor. He walked into the room, sat on the bed, and took a minor rejuvenation pill to recover from his injuries. Natasha and Ella went up to the third-floor bedroom together. Back in his room, Ethan took a quick shower, the hot water washing away his fatigue. Then he lay directly on the soft bed and soon fell into a deep sleep. His breathing gradually became steady, and he drifted into dreamland. Late at night, the entire villa was exceptionally quiet. Natasha and Ella talked in low voices in the room. Their voices were particularly clear in the silence. Natasha lowered her voice and gently said to Ella, "Ella, your revenge has been taken. So, what are your plans for the future now?" Ella frowned slightly, a hint of confusion in her eyes, and softly replied, "You promised Ethan before that you would take me to Azure Island to guard it for 20 years. But, I don't quite understand why you would choose to guard an island." Natasha sighed softly, a touch of helplessness in her tone. 20 years will pass quickly, but many unexpected things might happen during that time. Although your strength is quite good, there's still a gap between you and the top experts. If we can get Ethan's protection, we can save ourselves a lot of trouble." Ella nodded thoughtfully, indicating understanding. "You're right. Currently, we really need a strong backer to protect ourselves. Both Rakshasa and the mutant organization have immense power, and General Warren is a top-tier dual ability user. We simply can't contend with him." Natasha smiled faintly and softly said, "So, Ethan is our best choice. All right, it's getting late. We should get some rest." The next morning, around 10 o'clock, the sun had already risen high, its rays streaming through the window onto the bed. Ethan slowly opened his eyes, stretched, then picked up the phone from his bedside table, found Petrov's number, and dialed it. Soon, the call connected. Ethan's lips curved into a slight smile as he spoke to Petrov on the other end of the line. "Petrov, Natasha was successfully rescued last night. She's safe now, so you can rest assured." Petrov, on the other end, was instantly overjoyed by the good news. Natasha was not only his sister, but also the pride and hope of their family. Her abilities were crucial to the entire family, and one could say that Natasha's power directly influenced the family's rise and fall. Petrov's voice was filled with joy and gratitude. "That's wonderful. Ethan, thank you so much. Where are you two now? I'll come find you immediately." "We're in Harbin, China, and we're heading to the capital soon. I think you should call Natasha first to check on her," Ethan suggested. Petrov readily agreed. "You're right. I'll call her first, and we can talk later." After hanging up, Ethan got up to wash. He brushed his teeth quickly, then splashed cold water on his face, feeling instantly refreshed. After that, he changed his clothes and went downstairs to the living room. In the living room, he skillfully brewed a pot of tea and sat on the sofa, savoring the brew. The aroma of the tea filled the air, invigorating his mind. He quietly enjoyed the taste of the tea, relishing the moment of tranquility. Before long, Natasha and Ella came downstairs. They approached Ethan with light steps and sat beside him. Ethan picked up his teacup, took a small sip, then looked at Natasha and said, "Natasha, your brother must have contacted you by now, right?" So, what are your plans regarding this matter? Do you want to go home for a visit? Natasha frowned slightly, pondered for a moment, then replied, Ella and I have decided to return to Russia briefly, but we won't stay long. Once the preparations for your Azure Island are complete, we'll head directly there. Ethan nodded, indicating understanding. He then said, All right then, I'll be returning to the capital with Brock Bailey shortly. You two must be careful. If Rakshasa learns of your whereabouts, they will certainly continue to pursue you. The two nodded, then left the villa, leaving Ethan alone on the sofa, leisurely pouring tea, patiently waiting for Brock Bailey to finish his recovery. Time passed by, minute by minute, until almost 3 o'clock in the afternoon, when Brock Bailey slowly emerged from his room. After a period of recuperation, his injuries had mostly healed, and he looked refreshed, as if reborn. When he saw Ethan's inquiring gaze, a hint of embarrassment appeared on his face. He said, Sorry, it took me so long to heal. Will I be delaying anything for you? Ethan smiled faintly and waved his hand, indicating he didn't mind. He stood up and walked to Brock Bailey's side, asking concernedly, How's your recovery? If you still need rest, you can recuperate some more. After all, your health is the most important thing. Brock Bailey looked at Ethan gratefully, shook his head, and said, I'm fine now. These injuries are nothing to me. With enough time, I'll fully recover. Ethan nodded, a faint smile on his lips. He said, Since that's the case, then come with me to the 9th Bureau. I've arranged a Deputy Chief Inspector position for you. This way, it will be much more convenient for you to operate within China in the future. Brock Bailey shrugged, saying nonchalantly, All right, whatever you arrange is fine. But why a deputy position? With my strength, being a chief inspector shouldn't be too much, should it? Ethan glared at him exasperatedly, saying helplessly, The chief inspector is me. Or would you like to be the chief inspector and have me as your deputy? Brock Bailey immediately shook his head repeatedly, chuckling, No, you be the chief inspector. I wouldn't dare take your position. It's getting late. Let's hurry to the 9th Bureau. With that, he eagerly stood up, ready to go to the 9th Bureau with Ethan. Ethan looked at Brock Bailey's embarrassed expression and didn't tease him further. He brought him into his system space, and then the two appeared in the inspector's office. Upon arriving at the office, Ethan wasn't in a hurry to leave. Instead, he took out Rakshasa's genetic research documents and placed them in a corner of the office. He then exchanged some spirit tea and spirit wine from the system shop and placed them in the office. Only then did he leave with Brock Bailey, heading towards the director's office. Soon, the two arrived at Director Zhong's office. Ethan pushed open the door and immediately saw someone he had never met before discussing something with Director Zhong. Seeing this, Ethan paused for a moment, then said apologetically, Director Zhong, have I come at a bad time? Director Zhong was initially startled to see Ethan push open the door, then smiled and said, No problem, Ethan, come in quickly. He then introduced Kelvin Guan, the office director of the Foreign Affairs Department, to Ethan and Brock Bailey. But before Ethan could speak, Kelvin Guan said sarcastically, Old Zhong, your subordinate is too undisciplined. He just walks in without knocking. It seems your 9th Bureau needs a thorough rectification. He then looked at Ethan and said, Are you Ethan Yi? Young man, don't act recklessly just because you have some power. Do you know how much trouble you've caused the country? Ethan was a bit bewildered. He didn't understand how he was being reckless or what trouble he had caused. He looked at Director Zhong, hoping for an explanation. Director Zhong quickly tried to mediate. Old Guan, calm down first. There might be some misunderstanding here. I'll explain it to you. Kelvin Guan paid no attention to Director Zhong's words. He maintained his rude attitude and sneered at Ethan. Humph, misunderstanding? He actually openly killed Zach. Do you know? The immense pressure I'm under right now. Even Elder Mo was injured trying to stop General Warren. And you still say this is just a misunderstanding? Old Zhong, I believe we should hand him over to quell this incident. At this moment, Ethan's face grew even darker. He turned to Director Zhong and asked in a low voice, Director Zhong, whose subordinate is this idiot? How dare he be so arrogant in our 9th Bureau? Or are you saying the higher-ups plan to use him to deal with me? Director Zhong hastily explained, Ethan, don't overthink it. No one wants to deal with you. I can vouch for that with my character. Ethan's lips curved into a faint smile, but the smile sent shivers down one's spine, and his tone became exceptionally cold. Oh, so it seems someone has grown greedy for the things I've contributed. As soon as his words fell, he suddenly turned to Brock Bailey, a cold light flashing in his eyes, and commanded, Brock, take him out. Brock Bailey, hearing the command, didn't hesitate. His figure streaked out like lightning. His fist, as hard as steel, struck Kelvin Guan with a fierce momentum. Kelvin Guan had no time to react. He just saw a blur before him, followed by a sharp pain. His body was instantly sent flying. However, Brock Bailey didn't stop his attack. He swiftly pursued Kelvin Guan, striking again with his fist. Each punch contained boundless power and killing intent, making the surrounding air tremble. Kelvin Guan desperately tried to resist, but his strength was vastly inferior to Brock Bailey's. He couldn't contend at all. With the final punch, Kelvin Guan's body completely disintegrated, transforming into a cloud of blood mist that dispersed into the air. Blood splattered on the ground, forming a shocking crimson stain. The entire scene was bloody and brutal, inspiring fear. Director Zhong's eyes widened, an expression of disbelief on his face, and he shouted, "Wait, Ethan, do you know what you're doing?" However, it was too late. Kelvin Guan's body instantly exploded into a bloody mist, the smell of blood permeating the air. Director Zhong looked at the blood mist, his heart filled with helplessness and regret. "Ethan, you were too impulsive." Ethan, however, seemed unconcerned. He calmly said, "Director Zhong, when I contributed the longevity pills, spirit tea, and spirit wine, I already anticipated this day. I just didn't expect it to come so quickly. Please report truthfully to the higher-ups. I now formally resign from the position of Chief Inspector. From now on, the 9th Bureau and I will have no further connection. I've left some gifts in the office as a small token of my appreciation to you." With that, he turned, preparing to leave. Just as Ethan was about to step out of the office, he suddenly stopped, his back to Director Zhong, and warned in a cold tone, "Director Zhong, most of my family and friends live in China, and they are ordinary people. I will absolutely not allow them to be affected in any way. Otherwise, you will face the consequences." Watching Ethan leave, Director Zhong felt a mix of emotions, but everything had already happened. He couldn't undo anything, so he could only report the situation truthfully to the higher-ups. 10 minutes later, Director Zhong appeared in Number One's office. He meticulously recounted the entire incident. Number One remained silent for a long time, then said in a serious tone, "It seems I've been too lenient with certain individuals, causing them to become increasingly brazen." Director Zhong remained silent, not responding to Number One's words. Number One glanced at Director Zhong and continued, "I am aware of this matter. You may return now. Also, arrange for personnel to closely monitor the safety of Ethan's family and friends. If anyone harbors ill intentions towards them, do not ask for reasons. Eliminate them immediately." Meanwhile, after Ethan left, he immediately summoned his flying sword and, taking Brock Bailey, flew southward. They sped along, incredibly fast, like meteors streaking across the sky. After flying for some time, they finally arrived over a patch of international waters near Southeast Asia. Ethan stopped his flying sword, hovering in the air. Looking at the vast, boundless sea around him, a feeling of grandeur welled up in his heart. He took a deep breath, then slowly said, "System, deploy the island based on our current location." As his words fell, a massive ripple suddenly spread across the calm sea. Immediately after, a huge island slowly rose from the water. The island measured approximately 20 square kilometers. Its air was rich with spiritual energy. Lush green trees adorned it. The beaches were pristine white, and the seawater was crystal clear and beautiful. In an instant, the formerly empty sea became lively, this sudden island bringing vitality and life to the area. Ethan controlled his flying sword to slowly descend onto the grassy center of the island. Feeling the solid ground beneath his feet and the fresh air, his heart was filled with satisfaction. He smiled and turned to Brock Bailey beside him, his eyes sparkling with excitement. "This place is great, isn't it? From now on, this will be called Azure Island, my private domain," Ethan said firmly. Brock Bailey smiled and nodded in agreement. "It is indeed great. The environment here is beautiful, the spiritual energy is abundant, and it's very suitable for cultivation. Moreover, its secluded location means it won't be easily disturbed by the outside world." He looked at Ethan and continued, "How do you plan to develop this Azure Island? Do you need me to guard it for a while first, to prevent any unwelcome visitors?" Ethan pondered for a moment, then nodded. "Then I'll trouble you to stand guard for a while. As for how to develop Azure Island, I plan to leave that to Hudson Yi. After all, this is his specialty. He'll surely be able to turn Azure Island into a beautiful and comfortable home." Brock Bailey was slightly startled, then chuckled. "Good, in that case, I'm relieved. I believe Hudson Yi will be able to make Azure Island astonishingly beautiful." Ethan stood at the center of Azure Island, his mental energy enveloping the entire island. He silently thought, "System, activate the high-level mountain protection array." Instantly, a brilliant light flashed, like a dazzling galaxy descending upon the human world. The light intertwined, forming a massive shield that enveloped the entire Azure Island. The mountain protection array's light was dazzling, like a mysterious veil, separating Azure Island from the outside world. The light contained powerful energy, giving a sense of immense security and protection. Under the illumination of the light, Azure Island appeared even grander and more magnificent. The trees on the island were lush and vibrant, thriving as if protected by the mountain protection array. Ethan quietly felt the power of the mountain protection array, his heart filled with confidence and pride. He knew that with this powerful array, Azure Island would become an impregnable fortress that no enemy could easily invade. As the light gradually dissipated, the power of the mountain protection array deeply integrated into Azure Island. It it would silently guard this island. Ethan turned to Brock Bailey and said, with this mountain protection array, Azure Island is much safer. Next, we can proceed with its development with peace of mind. Brock Bailey nodded in deep agreement. You're right. This array is truly formidable. It feels stronger than any array I've ever seen. Ethan's lips curved into a faint smile, a hint of smugness in his heart. After all, this was a high-level array produced by the system. Its effect was certainly extraordinary. Brock, now that we have the mountain protection array, you don't need to constantly guard Azure Island. You can take some time to visit the surrounding countries. Oh, and I'll teach you the method to control the mountain protection array. With that, Ethan taught the method to Brock Bailey. Next, Ethan returned to Shanghai through the system space. However, he didn't linger long at his cloud villa. Instead, he swiftly unleashed his powerful mental energy, beginning to search for Richard Luo's whereabouts. At this moment, Richard Luo was standing on a warship, methodically directing his subordinates to transport various living supplies. Suddenly, he felt a strange fluctuation in the space ahead, and then Ethan's figure appeared before him like a ghost. Seeing this, Richard Luo immediately stood at attention and saluted Ethan with a standard military salute. Ethan smiled and nodded in satisfaction, then issued his command. Richard, I require you to stock a month's worth of supplies and lead the K-8284 warship to Azure Island to garrison it. Richard Luo responded without hesitation. Yes, mission accomplished. Ethan patted Richard Luo's shoulder and said, Thank you for your hard work. This mission is crucial. You must depart as quickly as possible. Richard Luo's eyes were firm, and he replied powerfully. Please rest assured, I will stock the supplies and depart as quickly as possible. Ethan said no more, his figure flashing and disappearing from the spot. Richard Luo immediately turned and shouted loudly, Brothers, speed up. According to the master's command, we must complete the supply stocking as soon as possible. The soldiers on the warship responded in unison, their movements becoming swifter and more efficient. Before long, the supplies were stocked, and the warship set sail, heading full speed towards Azure Island. Meanwhile, Ethan, after leaving, appeared in his Thompson Riviera home. He looked at the impeccably clean house, and a knowing smile appeared on his face. It seemed Nina had been here to clean after returning to Shanghai. Ethan sat on the sofa, turned on the TV, and changed a few channels. Finding no programs he liked, he turned off the TV, stood up, and walked to the balcony. He pushed open the window, and a breath of fresh air invigorated him. Ethan stood on the balcony, overlooking the streets and vehicles below, his heart filled with emotions. He thought of his former self. Suddenly, Ethan's phone rang, interrupting his thoughts. He picked it up and saw that it was a call from Hudson Yi. He pressed the answer button and asked with a smile, Hudson, what a surprise call. Is something wrong? Hudson Yi said on the other end, Ethan, I have something important to tell you. Ethan asked curiously, Oh, what's important? Hudson Yi said seriously, I just received news that someone is investigating you. Ethan frowned slightly and asked, Who is it? Why are they investigating me? Hudson Yi replied, The specific situation isn't clear yet, but it's very likely to have an official background. I think it might be unfavorable for you. Ethan scoffed, disdainfully saying, Humph, whoever it is, daring to provoke me is courting death. Hudson Yi said worriedly, Ethan, you should still be careful. Ethan comforted him. Don't worry, Hudson, I'll be careful. However, I'm not someone who can be easily pushed around. Hudson Yi nodded. Understood, you must be careful. If there's anything you need me to handle, let me know anytime. Ethan chuckled. All right, I know. By the way, I also have something to tell you. Hudson Yi asked, What is it? Ethan said, I have a small island in international waters in Southeast Asia that I need you to arrange for development. Hudson Yi asked in surprise, An island? When did you buy an island? Ethan smiled and explained, I just acquired it recently. Now I need you to develop it into a private domain. Hudson Yi guaranteed, Don't worry, I'll make sure it's well arranged, and I promise to make this island beautiful. Ethan said with satisfaction, Good, I'll leave it to you. I trust your abilities. Hudson Yi patted his chest and vowed, I promise to complete the construction as soon as possible. Ethan said, All right, I'll send you the island's coordinates first. Have someone survey it, then draw up a detailed plan. After hanging up the phone, Ethan sent the coordinates of Azure Island to Hudson Yi, then flashed and appeared in his courtyard house in the capital. Back in the courtyard house, Ethan skillfully took out a tea set, brewed a pot of hot tea, its aroma filling the air. Then, he lazily leaned back on the comfortable sofa, picked up his phone, and began browsing short videos. The screen continuously switched between various live streams selling goods, with hosts vigorously promoting products, making him feel a bit annoyed. With a soft sigh, he put down his phone. As night slowly enveloped the land, the city lights gradually twinkled on, like scattered stars. On this tranquil evening, Ethan sat in his office, quietly savoring the aroma of tea. He had just brewed a fresh pot, poured a steaming cup of tea and set it aside, then refilled his own cup. Just as he was immersed in the tea's fragrance, a faint knock on the door broke the silence. The door then opened, and a figure slowly entered the room. Ethan smiled and looked up at the newcomer. Director Zhong, you're very punctual. Please, have a seat. I've just brewed some tea. We can enjoy it together. Director Zhong walked to the sofa and sat down steadily. His face was somewhat serious, his eyes revealing a hint of worry. Ethan, you were too impulsive today. That Kelvin Guan was just a minor character. There was no need to directly eliminate him. A lesson would have been enough. Doing so will only cause unnecessary trouble, Director Zhong said in a low tone. Ethan shrugged, an indifferent expression on his face. He took a light sip of tea, then replied with a smile. I just couldn't stand his arrogant demeanor, so I couldn't help but let Brock act. Besides, wouldn't our plan be easier to succeed this way? Director Zhong frowned slightly, sighing. Although there's some truth to what you say, we still need to act carefully. After all, we're trying to draw out internal traitors, and your actions might dissatisfy many senior colleagues. Ethan nodded, indicating he understood Director Zhong's concerns. He put down his teacup and said softly, Don't worry, Director Zhong, I'll be more mindful in the future. However, this plan really needs to feel authentic. Only then will they come out. Director Zhong was silent for a moment, then nodded in agreement. He knew Ethan had a point. Sometimes, decisive action was necessary to achieve their goals. But at the same time, they couldn't ignore the risks and consequences. All right, in that case, we'll proceed with the original plan. I hope everything goes smoothly, without any unexpected incidents, Director Zhong said. Ethan stood up and walked to the window, gazing out at the stars. He took a deep breath and said firmly, Don't worry, Director Zhong, we will definitely succeed. As long as the plan isn't leaked, we'll root out the internal traitors. Director Zhong also stood up, walking with steady steps to Ethan's side. He looked up, gazing at the deep starry sky with Ethan, his eyes firm and sharp. He slowly began. I've given instructions to Morgan Mu to implement comprehensive surveillance on all personnel at the 9th Bureau headquarters. If any traitor reveals even the slightest clue, we will surely detect them. Furthermore, Number 1 has instructed me to provide protection for your family and friends, but at the same time, you also need to raise your vigilance. If the news of your departure from the 9th Bureau is leaked by a traitor, those foreign forces are very likely to attempt to recruit you. Ethan nodded slightly, indicating understanding. His gaze remained fixed on the starry sky, and he said calmly, I've already informed Richard Luo to sail the K-8284 warship to my Azure Island in Southeast Asia. If those people fail to recruit me, they will likely choose to besiege me there. Director Zhong frowned slightly, asking worriedly, Should I dispatch the Dragon Slayer's squad for support? It's a pity Elder Mo cannot easily leave the capital and cannot personally assist you at the scene. Ethan's lips curved into a confident smile, and he reassured, Director Zhong, please don't worry. As long as they dare to come, they will be completely annihilated, without exception. His voice conveyed fearlessness and confidence, as if he had everything under control. Director Zhong saw this, and no longer insisted. In that case, I'll be going now, to avoid causing suspicion. Watching Director Zhong's retreating figure, Ethan smiled faintly, then flashed, disappearing from the spot. When he reappeared, he was back in his Thompson Riviera home. Meanwhile, in a seemingly ordinary villa on the outskirts of Moscow, the capital of Russia, Petrov was looking at Natasha with a helpless expression, his eyes filled with worry and reluctance. He softly said, Sister, have you really thought this through? Are you really going to guard Ethan's island for 20 years? If you change your mind, you must tell me, and I'll even beg Ethan to cancel this agreement, no matter how much it costs me. Natasha was deeply moved by Petrov's words, tears welling up in her eyes. To be honest, among the entire family, only Petrov truly cared about her. Everyone else merely valued her abilities. She looked at Petrov and softly replied, Brother, thank you for your concern, but I've decided to follow Ethan. If I continue to stay with the family, I will only bring disaster to everyone. Although it's nominally guarding Ethan's island, in reality, I'm just seeking Ethan's protection. With that, Natasha's eyes became firm. Petrov silently watched Natasha, his heart filled with conflict and entanglement. He knew his sister's choice was correct, but he also didn't want her to leave his side. Finally, he sighed and gently patted Natasha's shoulder. Natasha, brother respects your decision. Take good care of yourself in the future. I'll visit you often when I get a chance, Petrov said, looking at Natasha with reluctance. Natasha wiped away the glistening tears from the corners of her eyes, revealing a smile. She softly said, Brother, you don't understand Ethan, do you? I won't be mistreated there. Don't worry about me. Natasha's gaze was filled with determination and trust. She then continued, By the way, brother, don't tell anyone else in the family about my return. Rakshasa is omnipresent in Russia, and you wouldn't want me to be captured again, would you? Petrov nodded slightly, a hint of resolve in his eyes. Don't worry, sister, I won't tell anyone in the family about your return. He paused, then continued, All right, I should go now, or staying longer might arouse suspicion. With that, he turned, his tall figure gradually receding from Natasha's sight. After Petrov left, Ella slowly came downstairs, her steps light and graceful. Looking at Natasha, her eyes were filled with envy, and she remarked with a sigh, "I truly envy the bond between you and your brother. In big families, such genuine affection is too rare." She sighed softly, a hint of loneliness in her eyes, as if recalling her solitary self. Natasha gently walked over to Ella, softly patting her shoulder, as if wanting to transfer her warmth to her, to offer some comfort. "Ella, let bygones be bygones. Don't dwell on the past too much. From now on, I'm your big sister. Don't worry, with me around, you'll definitely live a life of comfort and abundance." Hearing Natasha's words, Ella couldn't help but chuckle at her humor. She looked at Natasha, her eyes sparkling with anticipation and curiosity, then asked, "When are we going to Azure Island? And where exactly is that island?" Natasha's face showed a warm smile as she patiently explained, "Azure Island is located in Southeast Asia. It's not close to here. But don't worry, we'll depart for there in 2 months, because currently, the island hasn't started construction yet. Everything is still in its initial stages. You wouldn't want to get there and have to sleep in a tent, would you?" Ella listened to Natasha's words and repeatedly shook her head, refusing. She certainly didn't want to go to an undeveloped island and endure harsh living conditions. So, she decisively replied, "Then let's go later." Natasha nodded in agreement, smiling. "Once the island's infrastructure is complete, we'll go there. Then we can enjoy a more comfortable living environment." The two exchanged smiles, then went upstairs to rest. The next morning, in Thompson Riviera, Shanghai, Ethan had changed his clothes. Just as he was about to leave, his phone suddenly rang. Ethan picked up his phone, seeing the caller ID. He was a bit surprised, but still answered the call. He asked curiously, "Mr. Elton, what made you call me?" On the other end, Elton smiled and said, "Mr. Yi, I apologize for calling so early. I hope I didn't disturb your rest. I received news that you killed Zach, the leader of the mutant organization. Now, General Warren has taken over the mutant organization. I suspect they might make a move against you, so I'm specifically reminding you." Hearing this news, Ethan frowned slightly, inwardly alert. Although he wasn't afraid of any challenge, he still needed to maintain a high level of vigilance. He calmly responded, "Thank you for the reminder, Mr. Elton. However, I believe I have sufficient ability to handle any situation." Elton nodded and continued, "Mr. Yi, I know you are powerful, but the mutant organization, now under General Warren's command, is not to be underestimated. If you need any help or support, please let me know anytime." Ethan smiled and said, "Thank you for your concern and support, Mr. Elton. If I need anything, I won't hesitate to ask you." After hanging up, Ethan fell into deep thought. He realized that as his actions gradually attracted attention from various parties, he might face more challenges and threats in the future. He took a deep breath, clearing his mind of stray thoughts, then flashed and appeared in the Azure Pavilion. Serena Xie was busy in the courtyard when a figure suddenly appeared before her without warning, startling her. However, when she looked closely and saw it was Ethan, whom she hadn't seen in a long time, a look of surprise immediately appeared on her face. She quickly went to greet him, excitedly saying, "Master Yi, you haven't been here in so long. The Saintess is in the small courtyard. I'll take you there now." Ethan nodded slightly, gesturing for her to lead the way. So, Serena Xie led him through several corridors, finally arriving at a delicate small courtyard. She gently knocked on the door and respectfully said, "Saintess, Master Yi has arrived." A faint sound came from inside the door. Immediately after, the door slowly opened, and Flora Hua's beautiful face appeared at the entrance. Seeing Ethan, a hint of surprise flashed in her eyes, and she softly said, "Flora greets Master Yi. Please come in." Saying that, she stepped aside, inviting Ethan into the room. The two sat opposite each other in the room. Serena Xie quickly prepared a pot of hot tea, gently placed it on the table, then bowed and exited the room. The room was silent for a moment. Flora Hua gently sipped her red lips, then broke the silence. "Master Yi, what brings you here this time?" Ethan leisurely picked up the teapot, gently poured himself a cup of fragrant tea. Then, he elegantly lifted the teacup, tilted his head slightly, and took a small sip. The aroma of the tea lingered on his tongue, bringing a satisfied smile to his face. After putting down the teacup, he smiled at Flora Hua and said, "Isn't the Lunar New Year almost here? I specifically prepared some gifts, and I hope you can help me take them back to the sect." As soon as his words fell, he quickly exchanged 2 million high-grade spirit stones from the system shop, placed them into an exquisite storage bag, and then handed it to Flora Hua. Flora Hua took the storage bag, examining it curiously. She secretly wondered what valuable items were inside. However, in front of Ethan, she couldn't directly inspect it, so she suppressed her curiosity. Ethan noticed the curiosity in Flora Hua's eyes, so he proactively explained, "This contains 2 million high-grade spirit stones. Our sect has nearly 200 members, so you can ask the sect master to distribute 10,000 high-grade spirit stones to each disciple. Consider it my Lunar New Year gift to everyone." Hearing this, Flora Hua was so excited she almost jumped up. She quickly stood up and bowed respectfully to Ethan, gratefully saying, "Master Yi, on behalf of all the disciples of the sect, I thank you for your generosity." Ethan smiled and waved his hand, gesturing for Flora Hua to sit down. "No need to be so polite. We are all from the same sect. We should look out for each other. Besides, I hope these spirit stones will help everyone in their cultivation in the new year." Flora Hua sat down again, her face still unable to hide her excitement. "Master Yi, with this generous gift from you, the sect will surely be filled with joy this Lunar New Year." Ethan nodded slightly and said, "I hope the sect disciples will like this gift. By the way, has anything happened in the sect these past few months? Also, what's the progress on the investigation into the Kunlun Peak rumors? Have there been any clues or breakthroughs?" Flora Hua looked at Ethan, a hint of embarrassment and helplessness on her face. She softly replied, "The sect is all well, nothing major has happened. However, regarding the investigation into the Kunlun Peak rumors, I have tried my best, but still haven't achieved any substantial results. It seems the person who spread the rumors disappeared into thin air, leaving no trace. What's even stranger is that everyone who has seen her cannot clearly recall her face, as if their memories have been erased by some mysterious power.